Summary: we saw Naruto and Sasuke as the reincarnations of Asura and Indra Otsutsuki in the original series. How will events change with Naruto having the blood of all the descendant clans of Kagaya Otsutsuki in him? Rinne-Sharingan and multiple bloodline Naruto. Prologue. The Land of Ancestors was a country that consisted of numerous farming villages, with small forests surrounding them. It also possessed a lake from which the villagers got water for use. The Land of Ancestors also had an emperor who ruled the country. This man was called Emperor Tenji. In this village also lay a gigantic tree known as the Shinju God Tree. The seed of the Shinju fell to the earth as a meteorite and grew, as if spurred on by the blood of many that had soaked the ground. The Shinju possessed a vast and potent amount of an unknown power which would later on be known as chakra. At the time, no one had harnessed this power yet, and it was proprietary to the Shinju. Every millennium, the Shinju would bring forth a fruit rumored to hold a part of its power. It was forbidden to go near the Shinju, and was especially forbidden to hold or eat its fruit. Kagaya Otsutsuki, a princess from another world, came to Earth to escape from the dangers of her own world, and landed in one of the forests surrounding the Land of Ancestors. The citizens of the country brought her, after she was found, to Emperor Tenji. Kagaya was an extremely beautiful woman with pale skin and delicate facial features. She had extremely long, sweeping white hair, gray in the anime. Kagaya possessed white clear eyes and her eyebrows were cut very short and round, a symbol of nobility, and she wore a red shade of lipstick on her lips. She wore a high-collared kimono with tomo running down the center and edges of the gown and was adorned with intricate gold and purple lines. Kagaya then wiped the memories of Emperor Tenji and all those who were there, and settled amongst them as Tenji's concubine. The land of that was a neighboring country of the Land of Fire and the Land of Rivers. They would seek to claim other countries as theirs by claiming to have found out documents granting them ownership of said land. They had their eyes set on the Land of Ancestors and sent two ministers, Suzaku and Jinbu, to tell Tenji how they had discovered documents giving them ownership of the part of the land where the lake was. They threatened Tenji and made a remark about Kagaya, grinning lecherously and laughing as they left. Kagaya had steadily grown closer to Tenji and after a while was expecting his child. She, however, didn't tell Tenji, and the only one who knew was her personal maid, Aino. Soon after this, the situation between the two countries had gotten worse, and men from the land of that came to take Kagaya for themselves. Kagaya and Aino tried to run but were surrounded by the men. Kagaya, however, wasn't going to let them have their way with her, and so she killed them using a strange power she possessed. This act, however, caused her to become a fugitive, wanted by Tenji, who had made a law stating that anyone to attack anyone from the land of that was to be executed. She and Aino fled the country with an army of weapon-wielding men hot on their heels. The men began shooting waves of arrows at them, and they began to increase their pace so as to not get killed by the rain of weapons. Aino, having seen Tenji among them, went back in order to let him know about Kagaya's pregnancy, hoping that would make him tell the men to stand down. Her pleas, though, did not reach him, and she was killed by several arrows piercing her. Seeing this, Kagaya was overcome with grief and hurried to the Shinju and ate its fruit. When she did this, she gained the Rinne-Sharingan, which manifested as a third eye on her forehead, and flew close to the moon. The sky opened up, and the moon revealed itself to be red with 3 concentric circles with 3 tomo on each ring. "Shine upon the world, infinite Tsukuyami," she exclaimed. By casting the infinite Tsukuyami, Kagaya enslaved everyone in the roots of the Shinju. She later released some of them to keep humanity from perishing. Kagaya was recognized as a goddess by the people for stopping the conflicts, and was called the Rabbit Goddess, Usagi no Megami. Kagaya eventually gave birth to twin sons, Hagoromo and Hamura. They both inherited her powerful chakra, which she got from eating the fruit of the Shinju. Hagoromo, the first son of Kagaya, was a tall and pale-skinned man, who had deep wrinkles and a strong jawline in his elderly age. He had spiky, shoulder-length, pale red hair, with a chin-length, braided lock hanging in front of his left ear. He also sported a goatee, which was short in his younger years and later tapered down to his waist in his old age. Hagoromo had a pair of horn-like protrusions extending from either side of his forehead and pupil-less white eyes. He also had a red Rinnegan-like marking in the center of his forehead. This marking appeared when he first awakened his Mangekyo Sharingan and Rinnegan. Hagoromo wore a white, full-length kimono with a pattern of 6 black magatama around a high collar, beneath which he wore a necklace which was also made up of 6 black magatama. On the back of his kimono was a larger, black Rinnegan marking with a pattern of 9 magatama arranged in 3 rows of 3 beneath it. Hamura was the second son of Kagaya, and Hagoromo's younger brother. Hamura was a tall and pale-skinned man with hairless brow ridges and white hair, which was short in his adolescence but later grew to waist length. His bangs were short, hung to left side of his face with a chin-length lock, which hung from the right side of his face. He also had small, horn-like protrusions on his forehead and inherited the renowned Byakugan in both of his eyes from his mother. He wore a light, full-length kimono with a pattern of 6 black magatama around a high collar and dark pants. He had his sword in its sheath strapped to his left hip. He also had a dark crescent moon representing Een mark in his left palm. After finding out that her sons had inherited her chakra, Kaguya became enraged, believing that she alone had the right to have chakra and that all chakra belonged to her. She merged with the Shinju, becoming the Ten Tails, and sought to reclaim her chakra from them. Hagoromo and Hamura knew that they had to do something to save the world from their mother, but Hei also knew that even together they were no match for her. After meeting a toad summon named Gamamaru, Hagoromo began learning Senjutsu, a technique that involves harnessing nature energy and merging it with one's own chakra to create an exponentially more potent and powerful version of chakra. Hagoromo mastered this art, and then he and Hamura went and fought their mother. The battle was very intense and lasted for months. It took a massive toll on the land and on those involved in the battle. At long last, the battle came to an end with Hagoromo and Hamura emerging victorious after managing to seal their mother and Hagoromo successfully sealing the Jubi, Ten Tails, into himself. After the battle, Hamura settled down and had a family. He would eventually be known as the ancestor of the Hyuga clan and the Kaguya clan. Hamura decided to go to the moon with some members of his family to make sure the seal holding Kaguya was kept intact. Hagoromo went around giving chakra to people in order to help them connect their energies together and understand each other. He started a creed called Nishu, Shinobi Sect. Hagoromo fell in love with a woman, married her, and had 2 children. The firstborn, Indra Otsutsuki, was a prodigy in the ninja arts. He possessed the same Dijitsu as his father once had, a variant of his grandmother's Dijitsu, a technique, the Sharingan, and was considered by his father to be extremely proficient in it. He excelled in everything he did and eventually grew to become independent of anyone else, believing that he didn't need anyone. Indra had long brown hair cut short on top. 2 locks wrapped in bandages framed either side of his face. His eyebrows were cut short, a symbol of his nobility and dark eyes. Later, he began wearing his hair back in a long cylinder and gained blue markings around his eyes, which were turned up at the corners. He wore a high-collared, light-colored kimono held closed by a dark sash. The collar of the kimono was adorned with magatama. He wore a black full-bodied suit underneath. The second son, Azura Otsutsuki, had short, spiky brown hair, 2 locks of which were wrapped in bandages framing either side of his face in a similar manner to his brother. He possessed stern facial features. In his later years, he had a more pronounced jawline and short goatee similar to his father. He wore what seemed to be a blank forehead protector and at a later time, bandages around his forehead. He wore a light-colored kimono with magatama adorned around the collar. The kimono was held closed by a dark-colored sash. Underneath, he wore a black full-body suit. Azura was a loving and carefree child and loved his elder brother very much, always playing with him. Unlike his elder brother, though, Azura was untalented and showed no promise in the ninja arts. This led to him seeking help from others and seeing the value of having people around to help achieve goals. He worked hard, training and learning, and eventually achieved power greater than his brother. After evaluating both men, Hagoromo chose Azura as the inheritor of Nishu. This decision infuriated Indra and caused him to fight with Azura over the title of inheritor of the ninja creed, Nishu. Even though Azura came out on top in this battle, he had lost the bond with his brother forever. Indra left his brother and father and started his own family. His descendants would come to be known as the Uchiha. Azura would also start his own family and become the ancestor of the Senju and Uzumaki clans. The Uchiha and Senju clans have been embroiled in a fierce rivalry ever since, and are each responsible for the death of countless men on both sides over the years since then. Hagoromo knew that when he died, the Shinju would be free and would destroy the world, so before his death he separated the chakra of the Ten Tails, and with the On-Myoton, Banbutsu Sozo no Jutsu, he split the Ten Tails into 9 different tailed beasts, Bija. He treated them as his own children, and they grew attached to him, respecting, loving, and referring to him as their father. His impending death brought great grief to the Bija, who were afraid about what would happen to them once he was gone. Speaking to them for the final time, Hagoromo said, "I don't have long anymore. Shikako, Matatabi, Isabu, Son Goku, Kokuo, Saikin, Komiai, Gyuki, Karama. Even though you have been separated, you shall always be together, until eventually that time shall come when you will become one. You each carry a name, and with a different shape than you had up to now, you will be shown a righteous path, different from the time you spent inside of me. What is true power? Until that time. After his death, the Bija went their separate ways where they lived alone away from the humans for centuries until they each got captured and were used as weapons by humans. They each grew to hold resentment for humans, but none more so than Kurama, the Nine-Tails who became an embodiment of hatred from years of mistreatment by humans. Despite all this, the Bija never forgot the words of their father and watched out for the individual their father spoke of who would reunite them all and bring peace to the world. Chapter 1. Minato Senju is a powerful shinobi. He is the Yondaime Hokage, 4th Hokage, and one of the most feared shinobi in history. He is one of the few shinobi to ever be given the SS rank and a flee on-sight warning in the history of the elemental nations. His exploits in the Third Great Ninja War still send shivers down the spines of all who heard about it. Killing an entire battalion of competent Iwagakure, Hidden Rock Village, shinobi in minutes would cause such a reaction. As the heir of the Senju clan, he comes from a very prestigious shinobi family. His great-grandfather was Hashirama Senju, the Shodaime Hokage, the firstborn of Senju Butsuma. Born during the Warring Clans era, Hashirama was the hope of the Senju clan. He soon met and surpassed expectations, becoming the most powerful Senju in recorded history. With his prowess with the Mokuton, wood release, his ninjutsu abilities, taijutsu prowess, senjutsu, nature technique, and unrivaled Irian ninjutsu, medical technique, abilities, he was a very well-rounded shinobi. He is considered the most powerful shinobi in history. With his Mokuton, he was able to capture 8 of the tailed beasts alone and eventually subdue the last tailed beast, the Kyubi, during his battle against Uchiha Madara. His skill in medical ninjutsu, though relatively unspoken about, was just as good if not better than his other skills. Even Senju Tsunade, his granddaughter and Minato's aunt, recognized as the best medic of her time, is but a child compared to him in this aspect. All in all, no one wanted to go up against Hashirama Senju in a battle, except Madara Uchiha, of course. Minato also had a great uncle in Tobarama Senju, the Nine-Daime Hokage, 2nd Hokage. Tobarama was also a very powerful shinobi. His prowess in Suite Unjutsu, water technique, was unrivaled by any, being able to pull out water from the atmosphere and use Suite Unjutsu without any water source and without needing to expend more chakra. He also had one of the keenest minds in the shinobi world, being able to learn Fuinjutsu, which is one of the hardest shinobi arts to learn. It was with his knowledge of Fuinjutsu that he was able to create the Hiraishin Jutsu, Flying Thunder God technique. This technique made him able to manipulate time and space to move at speeds untraceable to the naked eye. He was also a master at Kenjutsu. His sword, the Raijin no Ken, Sword of the Thunder God, is one of the most well-known swords in the world. It is a sword made up of a handle through which the blade would emerge when chakra was channeled into the sword. The blade glows a bright yellow and is made of electricity. Minato's mother, Akari Senju, was an incredibly beautiful woman. Standing at a height of 5 feet 4 inches, she had straight, long, blonde hair reaching her lower back, with delicate facial features. She had a white sclera and a black iris. She also has pouty, pink lips and possesses a busty and curvy figure. She was a powerful Genjutsu, illusionary techniques, user, surpassing even Toka Senju, and was regarded as the most powerful Genjutsu user and kunoichi of her time. Her skills with Genjutsu were so strong that she was capable of creating illusions powerful enough to fry a person's brain cells. The theory was that she had a powerful affinity with Yin chakra, which caused her illusions to appear real and deal more damage. She was also not lacking in other skills. As a Senju, she had extremely potent and rather large chakra reserves. She also possessed delicate and precise chakra control, and was skilled in ninjutsu and taijutsu. She had natural affinities to fire and water nature releases, but through training she is able to use wind, lightning, and earth releases as well as yin and yang, and was able to more than hold her own against most in a purely ninjutsu battle. She also possessed a natural strength associated with members of the Senju clan, and was quite fast, able to match Kage-level shinobi in speed. She didn't focus a lot on Kenjutsu sword techniques, as it was not her forte. However, she did possess enough skills in Kunai and Shuriken throwing to accommodate for her lack of Kenjutsu mastery. She was also an excellent medic mean, being able to match her sister Tsunade in the art. Akari died in one of the major battles with Iwagakure no Sato village hidden in the rock, in the Third Great Shinobi War. The battle lasted for 3 days straight, and when a fresh batch of IWA shinobi abruptly entered the battle scene, she acted as a decoy to save her already tired and weakened shinobi. She was able to take out a great number of the opposing shinobi and weaken the rest such that they were unwilling to pursue the Konoha shinobi that escaped. Minato's aunt, Tsunade Senju, Konoha no Namakuji Tsunadeheim, Konoha's slug princess, is regarded as the strongest and most beautiful kunoichi in the elemental nations. She is 5 feet 3 inches and has long, straight blonde hair, with a honey-brown iris and similar facial features to her sister. Tsunade was compared with her older sister, Akari, while growing up. With a near-identical look, she sometimes struggled to get out of her sister's shadow. However, she didn't resent her for it, but instead loved and respected her. She eventually showed everyone that she was her own kunoichi with her actions in the Third Great Shinobi War, which saved countless lives. She, along with her teammates, Jiraiya and Orochimaru, were given the title of Densetsu no Sannin by Sanchuo no Hanzo of the Salamander, for surviving a battle with him. Tsunade has large chakra reserves with perfect chakra control, which she uses to augment her impressive natural strength and also for her strength of 100 seal. This seal manifests itself as a purple, diamond mark on her forehead. By amassing a steady and precise amount of chakra in the seal, her chakra reserves are multiplied 100 times when it is eventually released. Tsunade, however, doesn't focus on elemental ninjutsu a lot and rarely ever uses any elemental jutsu. She does possess a natural affinity for water and earth, and through training, is able to use lightning and fire chakra. Minato had all this famous and powerful shinobi, and that's just on his maternal side of the family. His father, Daichi Kagaya, a man standing at 6 feet 1 inch, with spiky white hair which went down to his mid-back, delicate facial features, electric blue iris, streamlined jaw, and an upper body with compact muscles and muscular biceps. He didn't have much fat on his body, as most of it was either muscle or bone. Daichi was one of the few Kagaya who possessed the dead bone pulse, Shikatsu Miyaku Kekiai Genkai. This gave him the ability to manipulate his bone structure, making it denser, and even bringing it above his skin to use as weapons. Unlike other members of the Kagaya, though, Daichi was a calm and strategic thinker in life and battle. He didn't relish taking lives, and only did it when it was absolutely necessary. However, if you were able to anger him enough to forego his aversions to killing, you would see the Kagaya side of him manifest. Daichi was considered the second most powerful shinobi in Konoha in his time, behind only the Sandaime Hokage, Hiruzen Sarutobi. He was an elite jounin of Konoha, and was an invaluable asset for them during the war. He died in a battle against the Sandaime Raikage, Third Lightning Shadow. No one expected the Raikage to be there, and so it was somewhat a surprise seeing him leading the ranks of Kumogakure no Sato village hidden in the clouds, shinobi. Regardless of this, the Konoha shinobi fought with everything they had. However, with the Sandaime Raikage present, the Kumo shinobi had the upper hand and they won that battle. The death of Daichi and those present with him was a huge blow to Konoha, but an even bigger blow to Akari, Minato, and all who knew him closely. For Minato, it was frightening for him to have lost his father. Who was going to guide him through being a father now? His father had always been his rock, someone he could go to ask for answers to any questions he had. He was thankful, however, that he had his family to help cope with the loss. Unknown to many, Daichi was half Uchiha. Although he couldn't manifest the Sharingan Kapiwalai, he did inherit the Uchiha's natural talent for most aspects of the shinobi arts, ninjutsu, taijutsu, shurikenjutsu, shuriken techniques, and kenjutsu. He also had potent and large chakra reserves typical of members of the Uchiha clan. His mother, Akira Uchiha, was the daughter of Izuna Uchiha and Tsuki Uchiha. Izuna Uchiha was the brother to the strongest Uchiha of all time, Madara Uchiha. However, Izuna Uchiha was equally as skilled as Madara, as both of them unlocked the Mangekyo Sharingan at roughly the same time. Despite being younger, Izuna was always competing with Madara, and was able to keep up with his skill level. Izuna died after being fatally wounded by Tobirama Senju. Having all of this powerful shinobi as family meant that Minato had a lot to live up to, and he certainly did live up to them. Growing up as the heir to the Senju clan, everyone expected him to be the best at everything he did, and he was. He was regarded as a once-in-a-generation prodigy, picking up on all aspects of the shinobi arts quickly. People hoped he would manifest Mokuton like his great-grandfather did, but he didn't. However, he was determined to live up to the strength of his great-grandfather and great-granduncle and become Hokage. He was skilled in ninjutsu, having both wind and lightning releases naturally. He had potent and large chakra reserves, and also precise chakra control. He was also abnormally strong, physically. He, like his father, had a lean body structure, but also possessed a denser than normal bone structure, which made his hits very powerful. But he always favored speed over more heavy-hitting approaches in battle. He was able to modify Tobirama's Hiraishin Jutsu with his knowledge of Fuin Jutsu, which allowed him to move at speeds unseen to the naked eye. All people saw when he used this technique was a flash of yellow. This earned him the moniker, Konoha's Yellow Flash. He was regarded by the people as the best Hokage in Konoha's history, and was one of the strongest shinobi of all time. But today, the 10th of October, he was excited and terrified of this new chapter of his life which was being opened to him and his beloved wife Kushina Uzumaki. They were having a baby. It was something that gave him more joy than he had ever felt before, and he didn't want to get it wrong. However, he had to head to the site where Kushina would be delivering her child, so that he could keep the Kyuubi from being released. With Kushina Uzumaki, Konoha's Akai Chishio no Habanero, Red Hot Habanero, a beautiful and fearsome kunoichi, was scared. Kushina stood at a height of 5 feet 4 inches. She had a feminine build, with a slightly round face in her childhood which lost its roundness as she grew older, and purple eyes. She had long, straight red hair that reached down to her waist with shoulder-length strands that framed both sides of her face. She was also the third Jinchuriki of the Kyuubi no Yoko. She had the densest chakra of anyone in her clan, and so was chosen as the Kyuubi's Jinchuriki, because she could subdue tailed beasts with her chakra chains. Kushina was also incredibly skilled in Kenjutsu. Her Kenjutsu ability was well known throughout the elemental nations. Members of the Uzumaki clan were generally highly skilled in Suiton ninjutsu, and she was no exception. Although her ability in Suiton ninjutsu was not as powerful as Tobirama Senju's, she was still good enough to be the most powerful water user in Konoha. Kushina has a rich heritage, being from the noble Uzumaki clan of Uzushiyogakure no Sato village and hidden in the whirlpools, a cousin clan to the Senju. Her mother was Hiroki Uzumaki, the clan head of the Uzumaki clan. Her grandfather was a branch member of the Hyuga clan known as Daisuke Hyuga. He had gone on a mission where he was wounded to being near death. He met a woman named Hirohito Uzumaki, whom he would eventually get married to. Hirohito took him to Uzushiyogakure, where he was nursed back to full health. He remained with the Uzumaki. However, after falling in love with Hirohito, who was the clan head of the Uzumaki clan, the cursed seal he had was removed easily by the Uzumaki, who were masters in the art of Fuin Jutsu. Kushina, however, didn't inherit the Byakugan, something which she was thankful for, as the Hyugas would have surely made a fuss over someone not in their clan possessing their Kekkei Genkai. Kushina rarely felt fear. Not in battle, regardless of the opponent, and not in life either. She always faced everything head-on, and had developed a reputation of being fearless. Such a trait was necessary if one wanted to be a kunoichi. So when she showed fear over giving birth, everyone was justifiably shocked. She had met her friend Makoto Uchiha, who had just had a son named Sasuke. She had just arrived at the site she was to give birth at, and Minato joined shortly after. During the pregnancy, Kushina was in so much pain. The Kyuubi was trying to break the seal, but Minato was on hand to keep the seal secure. The pain she was in, however, was incomparable to the joy she was currently feeling. Her baby, her little Naruto, had just been born and was in her arms. "He is beautiful, Minato-kun, and it looks like he took the best of the both of us," Kushina said. Naruto had a chubby face with soft and delicate features, and a tuft of red hair on his head. "Yes, he does, Kushina-chan. Although I was worried he would gain extra physical traits as a result of exposure to the Kyuubi's chakra, but he looks like a normal child. No doubt he will definitely be quite the looker when he is older," Minato said, beaming with joy. "None of those hussies will ever touch my son," exclaimed Kushina, forgoing her current tiredness to show her displeasure of any girl trying to take her son away from her. "Now, Kushina, I have to get little Naruto cleaned up," said Bawako, the wife of the third Hokage. Tsunade would have been the one in charge of helping the newest Senju enter into the world, but she was currently on an important mission outside of Konoha. Naturally, she wanted to be there for the birth of her nephew's son, but Minato had convinced her to go on the mission, which was vital to restore the strength of the village that had waned during the third great shinobi world. Her grandnephew would still be here at her return. Kushina handed Naruto to Bawako. She wanted to spend more time with her baby, but she knew she had to wait to get her Naruto time. Thud. Thud. Bawako-sama. Taji. There in the middle of the room was a man in a black hooded cloak, with a white mask with black marks on it. The third's wife, Bawako, and the medic assistant Taji were on the floor dead, killed by the masked man. The man had Naruto in his grasps, and both Minato and Kushina had their hearts in their mouths. Step away from the Jinchuriki Yondaime Hokage, otherwise dies at the tender age of 1 minute, the masked man said. Now, let's calm down and not get hasty here, Minato said, trying to buy time to figure out how he and his family were going to get through this. Suddenly Naruto was in the air, having been thrown by the masked man who had a kunai in his hand, ready to impale Naruto. True to his name, the yellow flash appeared underneath Naruto in the blink of an eye and snatched him from the air. You stay true to your name, Yondaime. It was real impressive how you moved quickly enough to reach Naruto before I killed him. But have you really saved your son? The masked man said with an amused tone at the end. Minato heard the sizzling of an explosive tag and saw several explosive notes all over Naruto's blanket and quickly teleported out of the area to a shack where he had one of his jutsu formula. He quickly removed the blanket and threw it away. It wasn't far away enough as the explosion caused a piece of wood to get stuck in his leg. The pain was nothing he couldn't handle though, so he just ignored it and teleported to his and Kushina's house to let Naruto rest. He had to save Kushina from the crazy masked ninja. He arrived in time to save Kushina from being impaled by the Kyuubi's claws, and then teleported the both of them to their home so Kushina to be with Naruto as he took care of the masked man and saved his village. He donned his Hokage garment, the white, short-sleeved, high-collared, ankle-length cloak that Minato wore, and headed off to battle. The battle against the masked man was tough as Minato expected. With the masked man's space-time technique, Minato showed his excellent analytical mind, managing to figure out a flaw in the masked man's technique and wrest control of the Kyuubi from him, as well as managing to injure the masked man. The masked man gave Minato a massive shocker when he claimed to be Madara Uchiha, and that he planned to destroy Konoha still. If Madara was indeed alive and was planning on destroying Konoha, he could only hope those he left behind would be strong enough to defend Konoha. And if they couldn't, he knew Naruto would be able to. Just thinking of him was able to put a smile on his face regardless of the grim situation. Once again, Minato arrived in time to save Konoha from a Bijidama, tailed beast ball, that was certainly going to destroy at the very least a large portion of Konoha along with a lot of people. He quickly summoned Gamabunta, the boss of the Toad clan, and asked him to restrain the Kyuubi while he amassed enough chakra to transport them all to a location far away from Konoha. Obviously, Gamabunta was not thrilled to have to deal with the strongest of the Bija and made this clear to Minato. However, despite knowing that he was no match for the Kyuubi, he did his best to help him. He did get a gash on his eye for his troubles though. Minato eventually teleported himself, the Kyuubi, Gamabunta, Naruto, and Kushina to a separate location and erected a barrier so that no one could get through. Kushina held the Kyuubi down with her chakra chains, which was sufficient to render the Kyuubi's rage useless. Having decided to seal the Kyuubi into Naruto, Minato got to work on the Dead Demon Consuming Seal, 8 Trigram Seal, and the 4 Element Seal. The Dead Demon Consuming Seal will summon the Shinigami, Death God, to conduct the actual sealing of the soul and chakra of the Kyuubi and Naruto. This jutsu, however, will require the soul of the caster to be sealed forever in the Shinigami's stomach. The 8 Trigram Seal is the seal that will keep the Kyuubi sealed inside Naruto. The 4 Element Seal is so that the Kyuubi's chakra would gradually merge with Naruto's own chakra. After saying their final, teary goodbyes, Minato had completed the seal, and both Minato and Kushina had died. However, before he died, Minato deactivated the barrier which allowed the Sandaime Hokage, Hiruzen Sarutobi, come closer to Minato, who then asked that Naruto be seen as a hero by the villagers. Hiruzen gave him his word and he died with a smile on his face, expecting that his son would have the best life any orphan could possibly have. He was wrong. The moment Hiruzen told the Council of Naruto's status as the Jinchuriki of the Kyuubi, the members of the civilian council were screaming for his death. The Shinobi Council held no hatred for the boy. They knew he was even more of a victim than any of them were. To lose both your parents and have to live with a beast that is hated by everyone in your village sealed inside of you. The boy's life was going to be tough. Each one of them could tell that he was Minato and Kushina's son. The red hair and the fact he looked almost exactly like Minato were dead giveaways. Hokage-sama, let the boy be given to me. He is going to need to be trained, and I believe that I can provide him the training he needs to grow to become a Jinchuriki worth of his bija, said Danzo Shimura, one of the elders of Konoha. Danzo was the rival of Hiruzen Sarutobi while they were younger, and was still a thorn to his side till this day. What are you talking about, Danzo-sama? "We must kill this child before the QB kills us all," spoke one civilian on the council. "That is enough. Naruto is not a weapon, and you will never have him, Danzo. Also, Naruto is not the QB, and the seal is in no danger of failing, so we aren't killing him. However, should any one of you speak a word of what has been said in this meeting to anyone else, they will be executed. This is classified an S-rank secret," roared Hiruzen, getting irritated by the actions of Danzo and the civilian council. "With all due respect, Hokage-sama, but how can you tell for sure that the seal will not break?" asked one of the members of the civilian council. "He is sure because I have checked it over myself, and Minato would not make a defective seal, especially with so much riding on the security of this particular seal." A new voice was heard from one of the dark corners of the room. It was Jiraiya of the Sannin, and now Konoha's foremost Fuinjutsu expert. "Isn't this meant to be a closed meeting, Hokage-sama?" said Danzo, seething over the presence of the Sannin. With Jiraiya present, Hiruzen had a very powerful and influential figure in his corner, which would make things less favorable for him. "Jiraiya is a Sannin, and our foremost Fuinjutsu expert. If anyone deserves to be here, it's him," Hiruzen said, leaving no room for arguments. "As I was saying, the seal is the best I have ever seen, and it works perfectly. There is nothing to worry about," Jiraiya said, aiming to dispel the fear the civilians had for the QB and Naruto. "Where will the boy live, Hokage-sama?" asked Hayashi Hyuga. He was close to Minato and wanted to know how the son of the village's greatest hero would fare. "He will probably stay in the orphanage along with the other orphans," answered Hiruzen. This brought a look of understanding to the face of Hayashi and the other clan heads. They knew that the Hokage would want to keep Naruto's identity a secret now that his parents were not here to protect him. "You are making a big mistake, Hokage-sama. This boy is not like any other orphan. He is an asset of Konoha and should be raised as one. Leaving him to the care of civilians could end up with disastrous consequences." "What do civilians know about raising a Jinchuriki?" stated Danzo, his disagreement with Hiruzen's decision showing clearly in his voice. "I hope you aren't insinuating that I am incapable of making decisions with the best interest of Konoha at heart, Danzo. Let me bother about Naruto's growth and development, and don't pretend to care about his well-being," replied Hiruzen, his tone cold and threatening, leaving no room for argument. "This council is dismissed," stated Hiruzen. At his word, everyone got up to leave. The civilians first, followed by the Shinobi Council, and then Hamura Mitokado, Kohara Udatane, two of Konoha's elders left the room. Left as well. Before Danzo left, however, he made sure to give a message to his old rival. "I won't let your weakness ruin Konoha, Hiruzen. I will do everything I can to ensure Konoha remains above all the other villages while I still draw breath, and that boy is the key to Konoha's supremacy. Why you can't see that now, I don't know, but you soon will. I only hope it's not too late by then." And with that, Danzo took his leave. "What do you think, Sensei? Does Danzo plan to harm Naruto?" Jiraiya asked. "I hope you know that I and Tsunade will not allow him come near Naruto, and we will kill him if need be," Jiraiya declared hotly. "Danzo may be a lot of things, but he values Konoha above all else. You heard him yourself, Jiraiya-kun. He considers Naruto a key player in Konoha's future, and I am positive that he will not do anything to harm him," said Hiruzen in an attempt to calm his students' anger. "However, this brings me to the topic of what I am going to about Tsunade," said Hiruzen. "I see what you mean, Sensei. She is going to want to take care of Naruto, and I will feel a lot better about leaving if she is with him," Jiraiya said, offering his opinion to his sensei. "I also wish it was that easy and that Naruto could live with Tsunade and have a better life. But with the way he looks so much like his parents, having Tsunade take care of him will only help people make the connection faster," said Hiruzen. "What happens if IWA and Kumo do so as well?" Hiruzen asked his student. "Well, we can't lie to her about what happened, so we have to tell her the truth of what happened. Besides, with the Sannin taking care of him inside the village and me wiping away the trail of blood from our currently bleeding military and economy until we are stable again, Naruto just might be safe," Jiraiya stated. He really wanted Naruto to be with family, and he knew that Tsunade won't take well to losing the last bit of family she had. "You might be right, Jiraiya-kun. If this works, it will be a huge burden which I don't have to deal with," said the Sandaime. "When is she supposed to return to the village?" he asked Jiraiya. "She should be here any day now. No doubt she has heard of what happened and is rushing down here now," Jiraiya answered. As if on cue, Tsunade burst through the door of the Hokage's office, not bothering to knock so she could get answers faster. "Where are Minato, Kushina, and Naruto-sensei?" Tsunade demanded desperately from her sensei, tears already forming in her eyes. She had gone over all the best and worst-case scenarios in her head while making her way to Konoha, and she didn't think she could take hearing that they all died. "Tsunade, it's good to see you, but please calm down," Hiruzen told his student, hoping to get her calm enough to break the news to her. "Just answer the question, sensei," Tsunade shouted. She wasn't taking her delay and giving her answers well at all. "Where are they?" she demanded again. Sigh. Hiruzen was not looking forward to doing this so soon. Minato and Kushina died protecting Konoha from the Kyuubi, Hiruzen said, giving her the bad news. Tsunade's heart sank. One part of her worst nightmares being confirmed, and she didn't think she could handle it. Her nephew Minato was dead. She had lost everyone but him, and he had helped her cope with the loss. But now he was dead. "Where is Naruto-sensei?" Tsunade asked, hoping with everything that he was alive. She didn't even want to think of what she would do if he wasn't. She was placing every ounce of faith into believing that he still was alive, hoping that even if he was dead, her faith would change reality. Naruto survived. "Look, he is inside the crib behind you," Hiruzen told her. With more speed than any one of them imagined she possessed, she had turned to look behind her and rushed over to Naruto when she saw him. She couldn't believe she had missed him when she came. He was the most beautiful baby she had ever seen, even more beautiful than Minato was as a baby. He looked so peaceful in his sleep, and it boggled her mind how he could sleep so soundly with all the shouting she had done when she came. "Thank goodness he is alive. I don't know what I would have done if he was dead," Tsunade said with so much emotion in her voice. "Tsunade, I am happy you both have each other, but there are some things we must discuss," Hiruzen said, drawing her out of her reverie. Tsunade only looked at him to show that she was listening. The Kyuubi was released by a man who claimed to be Uchiha Madara. This shocked Tsunade, as she believed that Uchiha Madara died at the hands of her grandfather. Ordinarily, we would have passed this off as ridiculous, but for the fact that this man was able to get past the A&B security detail, get past the barrier seal, and control the Kyuubi to destroy the village just like Madara infamously did against Hashirama-sensei at the Valley of the End. This shocked Tsunade further and brought her a sense of foreboding. This man was sounding more and more like Madara Uchiha. Even she, a Sannin, would not be able to do that, and she doubted either Jiraiya or Orochimaru would be able to do all that easily. The A&B were the elite of Konoha's forces, and the barrier seal was an Uzumaki seal, which means that only a seal master of Uzumaki standards should have been able to break it. How then did this man do it? He also managed to fight Minato to battle on par with Minato, and Minato had to push close to his limit to defeat him. Hiruzen said, "To fight on par with Minato, he is no ordinary shinobi." "Could he be Madara?" Tsunade asked, hoping he was a fraud. Anyone else, even one as powerful as this guy seemed to be, would be a much easier opponent than Madara Uchiha. "We certainly hope not, Haim," Jiraiya answered. Due to Kushina's injuries, she wasn't able to take having the Kyuubi resealed in her without dying and releasing the Kyuubi again, so Minato sealed the Kyuubi in young Naruto here. Hiruzen said, "The council knows about this, and though the civilian council isn't happy with it, the shinobi council holds no resentment for Naruto-kun." Hiruzen finished, allowing Tsunade speak her mind. "If anyone tries to harm Naruto, I will break every bone in their bodies 10 times over," Tsunade stated hotly. "I hope you aren't going to try to take Naruto from me, sensei," Tsunade said while glaring at her sensei. "I admit that I was going to attempt that so that Naruto wasn't put in further danger, but Jiraiya has informed of a way to both protect Naruto and keep you with him." Hiruzen replied Tsunade, quickly adding the last part after her glare intensified. "That's good that the pervert is good for something," Tsunade said, smirking at the face Jiraiya made at her statement. "So, what do I have to do to officially adopt Naruto?" Tsunade asked her sensei. "Just sign these papers here, and I'll handle the rest," Hiruzen said, handing her some documents to sign. This was potentially a source of many meetings and headaches for him when people found out, but he would deal with them happily if it made young Naruto's life easier. "What are you going to do, Jiraiya?" Tsunade asked Jiraiya. He was Naruto's godfather, and she wanted to know what he was going to do next. "I wish I could stay in Konoha and watch Naruto grow, Haim, but I have to take control of my spine network and keep the other countries away from Naruto and Konoha. However, I will drop in from time to time to make sure my godson knows how much of an awesome godfather he has," Jiraiya answered, a massive grin on his face at the last part. "Thank you, Jiraiya. Thank you, sensei, for doing this for Naruto and me," Tsunade said to Hiruzen and Jiraiya. "You are welcome, Tsunade. Besides, Naruto is all our responsibility in a way," Hiruzen replied Tsunade, with Jiraiya nodding in approval of Hiruzen's words. "I'll be leaving now, sensei," Jiraiya told the Sandaime Hokage. He had to head out and begin work as soon as possible. "So will I, sensei?" Tsunade said. She had to head home to feed him, and get him settled in his new home. They would be staying in the Senju clan compound. You both may leave. Tsunade, I presume you will be staying at the Senju clan compound, right? Hiruzen said, before asking Tsunade for confirmation. Yes, I will, sensei. He is the heir to the Senju clan after all. Tsunade said, and with that she and Jiraiya left the Sandaime in his office. That's right. How could I forget that he is the Senju heir? This shaping up to be a really troublesome situation, Hiruzen thought, sighing. Chapter 2. With Kyubi. The Kyubi was not having fun. He had been teased with freedom from that which is, in his opinion, seal, only to be denied his freedom immediately, and by an Uchiha no less. He had once again been controlled by the Sharingan. That was one of the most humiliating things he had ever experienced. Him, the most powerful of the tailed beasts, him, the son of Hagoromo Otsutsuki, the Rakudu Sannin, being manipulated by descendants of that accursed Indra. The Kyubi certainly took offense to that. And what's worse, he was sealed into a newborn, the son of Kushina and that Minato Senju, the one that sealed him here. Kyubi didn't like the kid already. What a foolish act. To seal me in this child at full strength, he is either very arrogant or very ignorant. Ha 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 ha. Breaking out of this seal will be easy as Tinder Rabbit. I just have to force my chakra through this seal, and it should give in seeing as the child does not have enough willpower to hold me back, thought the Kyubi. And so the Kyubi got to work sending his potent chakra through the seal. It looked like he would succeed and be free of his prison when chakra like he had never felt before, not since his father was alive, erupted and effectively pushed back his own chakra and restrained him easily. Arg. UNGH. What is this chakra? It is restraining me the more I try to break free of this seal, thought the Kyubi. With that, Kyubi stopped trying to break the seal and sat back to ponder on what he had just experienced. What was that the kid's chakra? It had the same feel to it as father's, and although not as powerful now, it could easily become as powerful in the future. This is not good. If the kid possesses that kind of chakra now, who knows how powerful he could become, and then I won't be getting out of this seal, at least not forcefully. All hope is not lost, however. If I can manipulate him into undoing the seal willingly, it won't matter how powerful his chakra is. That last thought brought a maniacal grin to the face of the Kyubi. Athahaha. All hope is not lost after all. I only have to be patient and work subtly if I am going to be free of this seal. Kyubi thought, with an evil laugh, with Tsunade. When Tsunade arrived at the Senju clan compound, she found Shizen, the niece of Dan Kato, her former lover, and her student, waiting for her in the house of the clan head. Originally, the house should have been inhabited by Minato and his family, but after being appointed Hokage, he went to live in the Hokage residence. She and Shizen have been living there ever since. Tsunade-sama, when did you get back? And who is that baby? Shizen asked when she saw her teacher. Not long ago, actually. This is Naruto-kun. He is going to be living with us now. Tsunade replied her apprentice. Oh, per Naruto-kun, I heard what happened to Hokage-sama and Kushina-sama. The whole village has been in mourning since. Shizen told her master. Nevertheless, I will make sure that Naruto-kun doesn't lack the love of family. Shizen declared with a determined expression on her face. Tsunade smiled warmly at her apprentice's words. I am so happy you said that, Shizen, because I have signed Naruto-chan's adoption papers. I will take care of him and treat him like the son I never had. Tsunade said. Oh, that's great, Tsunade-sama. I am so happy for you, Shizen said, smiling brightly. Can I hold him? She asked her master. Of course you can. Tsunade said, handing over Naruto to her. He is so cute, Tsunade-sama, Shizen said, gushing over how handsome Naruto looked. He is going to have a lot of female admirers for sure. Don't you think, Shursho master? She asked. They can admire him all they like, provided they don't do any more than that, Tsunade said, her protective motherly instinct showing through. Don't worry, Tsunade-sama. As Naruto-kun's big sister, I won't let any girl corrupt him, Shizen said, bringing an approving smile to Tsunade's face. However, we aren't going to be able to keep him for too long. Otherwise, he could rebel against us, and who knows who he will get within. Shizen told her master. Why are we talking about this now? It will be years before we have to deal with this anyway. Tsunade said. That's right, Shursho. How are you going to feed him, though? Shizen asked her master. I'll breastfeed him, of course. Tsunade answered, with a dramatic, flabbergasted expression on her face over Shizen's question. But how will you do that, Shursho? Shouldn't that be impossible seeing as you haven't had a child? Shizen asked. It's because of a seal my sister and I created that I can do this. It's a Fuinjutsu Iri ninjutsu hybrid that we created for such a situation as this. Tsunade answered her apprentice. She then brought out a seal from the inside of her vest. This seal works to stimulate the release of the hormones estrogen and progesterone, which will in turn stimulate the production of milk. All I have to do is apply this seal at the base of my neck and let the seal do its work. Tsunade told her apprentice. Shizen was in awe of the ingenuity of such a seal. It really was amazing to see one of the works of the Senju princesses, as her master and her sister were often called. This has been a long and stressful day for all of us. Why don't we turn in for the night and continue this tomorrow morning? Good night, Shizen. Tsunade said, ending the conversation in favor of getting some rest. Good night, Shursho. Shizen said. Time skip. It had been 4 years already, and the years went by like a flash. Raising Naruto had been a joy if you asked Tsunade. Everyone that knew him quickly found out that he was a special child. He was always stronger than any other child, even for a Senju child, and faster than children his age were. Tsunade remembered Minato being quick as a child, but even he wasn't that quick. This caused quite a few troublesome situations for her and Shizen, as they had to really try to catch him whenever he ran away. He also was incredibly smart, like in an unreal sort of way. He started talking when he was 6 months old and was already walking when he was 8 months old. This meant that Naruto was always inquisitive. He was always reading and eager to learn new things. He also was eager to start his ninja training from the moment he learned of the exploits of the Senju brothers, Hashirama and Tobirama Senju, the Uchiha brothers, Madara and Izuna Uchiha, and his personal hero, Minato Senju, the fourth Hokage. He had learned about these men and many other legendary figures in shinobi history ever since he could read, and he wanted to get started on his journey to surpass these men. He also read about remarkable kunoichi like his mother and her sister, Akari Senju, who also happened to be his hero's mother. These were women that showed that they could stand on equal footing with shinobi. He had begun reading everything he could on the basics of all the shinobi arts. In ninjutsu, he read about the components of chakra, chakra control, shape and nature transformation, hand seals, etc. He also read about the different taijutsu kata that was available, specifically the Senju taijutsu style, the Thousand Limbs style, and the Hummingbird style of Minato Senju. He had also read about the basics of genjutsu and had started being taught about Iri ninjutsu by his mother and elder sister, Shizen. He had also developed interest in Fuinjutsu, an art that very few people pursued extensively due to its complexity and difficulty. But being part Uzumaki, this wasn't all that shocking. At 3 feet 11 inches, Naruto was much taller than the average 4-year-old. His vibrant red hair had grown to reach slightly past his neck, and he had 2 bangs. One went straight down reaching his chin, while the other went down to his chin as well, but also covered his left eye slightly. He had delicate and streamlined facial features, and his eyes were a bright blue. He wore a black, short-sleeved t-shirt with the Senju clan symbol at the back. He also wore black shorts with black shinobi sandals. Naruto knew that his mother didn't want him to start his shinobi training yet, but after much pestering and manipulation on his part, she agreed to let him do some light physical training. It was nothing too strenuous, just some jogging, push-ups, sit-ups, and crunches. Today was the first day of his training, and he was doing it all alone. His mother had wanted him to wait until there was someone who could supervise his training, but he managed to convince her that he knew what he was doing and promised her that he wouldn't overdo his training. 46, 47, 48, 49, 50. Whew, all done. Those exercises really got my blood pumping. I still have some energy left though. Maybe I should go for a walk around the village. Mom would freak if she found out, so I must return before she and Shizune, big sister, return from their shifts at the hospital. I might even see something new and interesting, Naruto thought. And with that, Naruto left the safety of the Senju clan compound. He knew his mother and his sister would not like him to go, but they weren't here, and he was extremely bored with nothing to do. Besides, what real harm could come to me in my own village, he thought. He had no idea what dangers were coming after him. With Danzo Shimura is a master strategist. He usually uses his mind for slightly dark and underhanded things, but there is no denying that he is someone who knows how to get what he wants. And right now, he wanted Naruto Senju. He had known that the boy would be a force to be reckoned with from the first day he laid eyes on him. Even before, knowing who his parents were, and seeing him now, he knew he had to have him. His development was phenomenal even for the most prodigious of shinobi. He had wanted to have his father, Minato Senju, but even he knew to steer clear of him. He had too many people that would and could readily kill him protecting him. And even Minato hadn't shown the kind of promise that his son was showing. He had also wanted to have the Uchiha clan heir, Itachi Uchiha, but couldn't for obvious reasons. But Naruto was one prize he wasn't ready to let go of. However, he knew he had to be smart about it if he wanted to succeed in his plans. First things first, though, he had to test the boy's mettle. Showing physical and mental ability far beyond one's peers was good and all, but it was only in the face of death that one's true potential showed itself. And he was going to help Naruto bring out his true potential. Fu. Torian. Danzo called out to two of his most trusted root soldiers. Hi. Yes, Danzo-sama. They both answered in perfect unison. I have a mission for you both. It is of utmost importance that you do not fail. The future of Konoha may be riding on your success, Danzo said, and with that, he gave them their mission. With Naruto. Naruto was walking through one of the training grounds of Konoha. He purposely avoided the populated regions of Konoha so that he didn't have to encounter the people and their hateful glares towards him. He didn't know why they hated him, and whenever he asked anyone, his mother, sister, Kakashi and Ai-san, his elder brother figure, and student of his father, his godfather, Jiraiya, or even the old man, Hiruzen Sarutobi, Sandaime Hokage, they always told him not to worry about it, and that they just needed time to see him for who he is. He didn't know why they needed time and couldn't see him for who he is now, and he also wondered what they saw him as if they didn't see him for who he really is. Regardless of this, Naruto tried to remain happy by avoiding the people of Konoha as much as he could. He was just admiring the scenery when two men appeared directly behind him. They both wore white cloaks and white masks with the word Naruto on it. Hello, may I know who you guys are? Do you need anything or? Naruto had to suddenly dodge a dozen shuriken that came at him, with reflexes and speed he didn't even know he had. Oh man, now I wish I had listened and stayed home. What could these guys possibly want from me? I have to get away from here right now. If he were to be honest with himself, he probably shouldn't have expected to outrun two trained shinobi, but in the face of possible death, faith was his only friend. He ran deeper and deeper into the forest until he had to duck a kick from one of his assailants that was heading for his head. He gulped as he saw that the kick had broken the tree almost in half, probably augmented with chakra, and he then began to realize just how serious these guys were. He knew people didn't like him in the village, but he never thought they would try to kill him. Naruto was strictly on defense at this point. He hadn't even accessed his chakra yet, and had only started light exercises today. How was he supposed to take on these guys? I have to get to mom quick. But how? Naruto mused. Naruto was immediately taken out of his thoughts as Fu landed a kick on his jaw which lifted him off the ground, and then gave him a standing drop kick while he was still in the air. Naruto crashed roughly to the ground, spitting up a glob of blood in the process. He was feeling more pain than he had ever felt in his young life and was feeling disappointed by his weakness. His ancestors were among the strongest people to walk this earth, and here he was being easily handled, not even giving his assailants a bit of a challenge. He probably was being a bit too hard on himself, all things considered, but he demanded more from himself. He stood up from the ground, trying to stave off the pain he was feeling in an attempt to fight. He knew he couldn't escape these guys, whoever they were, and decided that if he was going to go down, he would go down fighting. He rushed at Fu with impressive speed and threw a punch at him which Fu parried with both hands. And in a show of impressive acrobatic ability, Naruto did a handstand and attempted to kick Fu in the jaw. Not considering his attack much of a threat, Fu leaned back slightly to avoid the kick. Seeing his initial attack fail, as planned, Naruto pushed forward, still on his hands, and locked his legs around Fu's neck and threw him a short distance across the field. Shocked that he had been taken down by his target, even though it was only because he was caught off guard, he stood up, dusting off his cloak. Seeing Fu get taken down by their target, Torian decided to start with his own attack. Megan, Narakumi no Jutsu, Demonic Illusion, Hell Viewing Technique. In the Genjutsu, Naruto was about to launch another attack on his opponent when he heard a familiar voice. Naruto-kun. It was undoubtedly his sister, Shizen's voice, and he turned around to see what was going on. Submit yourself to us willingly, and we won't kill her, Naruto, Torian said in an emotionless tone. Naruto was distraught at seeing his sister with a kunai being pointed to her jugular by the other masked man. He was gradually becoming more and more enraged at these men who were now messing with his family. Let her go, Naruto ordered angrily. I will when you submit yourself to us, Torian said. What do you want with me? Naruto asked the masked shinobi. You will find out what we want when you come with us, Torian said, still in that emotionless tone. This worried Naruto because he didn't know what kind of person he was dealing with, or how to handle this situation. What idiot would agree to such a proposition? Naruto exclaimed, not seeing how the offer would benefit him. Hearing Naruto say this, Torian pushed the kunai further until a streak of blood ran down Shizun's neck. One who doesn't have any other options. Torian said with an ominous edge to his tone. I have no problems killing her, Naruto, so come with us if you want to save her. Torian told Naruto. Naruto knew that if he refused, these men would kill Shizen and do with him as they pleased after, and so decided to surrender to save his sister at least. All the while, Shizen had foregone making any movements or sounds in favor of protecting her neck from being slit by the man who had her in his arms. But seeing her little brother considering surrendering to the horrible men who had kidnapped her, she decided to speak up. No, Naruto-kun, don't worry about me. Run away and find Tsunade-sama. Go now, Shizen said. Hearing his captive's statement, Torian pushed the kunai slightly further into Shizen's neck, drawing more blood. Seeing this, Naruto hurriedly said, Stop. I will go with you guys. Just let her go. Fu, who had been standing ready to capture Naruto all the while the discussion was going on, moved to apprehend him. Seeing that Naruto was firmly within Fu's grasp, Torian said, Good choice, Naruto. And with that he slit Shizen's throat. Naruto's mind went blank for a moment. He hadn't anticipated such an outcome. He killed her, Naruto thought. Suddenly, chakra like nothing Fu and Torian had ever felt before erupted from Naruto, shattering the genjutsu easily. The chakra that came out of Naruto cracked the floor, raising up chunks of rock, and leveled all the trees within 20 feet of his position. The chakra was bearing down on them, and they knew they had to escape lest they get killed by the oppressive force of the chakra. Ah! Naruto screamed, his eyes opening to show a pair different from the one he had before. This new pair consisted of purple sclerae and irides, with concentric circles spreading over the eyeball, and 3 tomo on the circle closest to the pupil. The eyes gave off a feeling of unquestionable and nigh-infinite power. Torian and Fu felt like they would be crushed should they attempt to go against the wielder of those eyes, and decided to take their leave, also seeing as their mission had been completed. Feeling a little woozy, and feeling the new power coursing through his being, Naruto opened his eyes to see nothing. There was no sign of his assailants or his sister. There wasn't even any blood on the ground to show that someone had been killed there. In the place of what he expected to see was utter chaos. The trees were uprooted, and chunks of the earth had been upturned. He figured that it was the power which he now felt within him that caused this. Is this my chakra? He mused to himself. He had read a lot about chakra, and was positive that this was chakra, his chakra. But wasn't chakra supposed to be smaller and less potent than this when just activated? He thought. What I saw must have been a genjutsu, and the release of chakra must have disrupted it. Naruto mused, seeing no sign of Shizen or anything to attest to her death. It looks like I'm not going to have any time to think more about this. Releasing all that chakra has got me exhausted. I only hope all this alerted someone to my position, Naruto thought before his eyes rolled to the back of his head and he fainted. His wish was granted though, as a squad of ANBU operatives had been alerted to his position by the chakra spike, and seeing him in his unconscious state, rushed him immediately to the hospital. With Tsunade. Tsunade was having a great day. Her baby, and the most precious thing to her, had just turned 4, and she had no regrets over choosing to take care of him. Even his mischief had grown on her, and she now couldn't imagine her life without him in her life. She had just come out of the emergency room. A civilian had come in with a saw in his leg and was bleeding profusely. She managed to stop the bleeding and still save the man's leg, which gave her great joy. Seeing the joy in the eyes of people when they heard that they would live to see their loved ones again was the reason she did this. While sitting at her desk, reading a book, Shizen rushed into her office, a panicked look etched on her face. Tsunade-sama, Naruto-kun was just brought in unconscious. What do you mean unconscious? Tsunade asked in an equally worried voice, already on her feet and by Shizen's side so she could take her to her son's room. He was brought in by some AMB who claimed to have seen him after detecting a massive chakra spike somewhere in the forests. They said that they found him knocked out and lying on the ground, and that there was no sign of what could have caused it. Shizen said while trying to keep up pace with her master, who was in a haste to get to her son. What was he doing in the forests? He should have been in the Senja compound. That boy is going to be in a world of pain when he comes to. Tsunade said, bristling with anger, in a small part at Naruto who disobeyed her, and in a large part at whoever had the audacity to harm her baby. Getting to Naruto's room, Tsunade found out that he was okay, and that he only suffered chakra exhaustion. This shocked her, seeing as he had no access to his chakra earlier in the day, and now was being told that he suffered from chakra exhaustion. The only way she knew of that people activated their chakra in situations of terror was if they had a Kekkai Genkai. Could Naruto have awakened Mokutan? Tsunade thought. If he had activated her grandfather's bloodline, She knew that those mummies that made up Konoha's Elders Council would do everything in their power to try and turn her baby into a weapon. Not that they weren't already trying now, but they were mistaken if they thought that she would let them have their way with her son. Tsunade performed a diagnosis jutsu to check what state Naruto was in. She found confirmed that it was only chakra exhaustion and speculated that he would come to in a few minutes, going by the rate at which his chakra was being replenished. This would be abnormal in anyone else but an Uzumaki and a Jinchuriki, so it was perfectly expected. In Naruto's mindscape, the last thing Naruto saw before unconsciousness took him was the wrecked surroundings of the forest he was in, and now he was in a dank sewer with only minimal light. But surprisingly, he could see clearly. Actually, he noticed that his sight was way better than ever. He didn't know where to go, so he went where his gut told him to go. After a while, he came to stand before a grand cage. He was admiring the massive golden gate that extended so high that he couldn't make out the top of it. There was also a seal on the cage that held it closed together. This seal looked like an ordinary piece of paper with kanji on it at face value. But seeing it, he knew it was a complex seal created by a master. Suddenly, a massive red fox with 9 tails and a menacing look came swiping at him, but suddenly stopped while just an inch to his face. Naruto fell on his backside from the shock of such an entity catching him unawares and almost taking his head off his neck. Looking up at just what this beast was, he noticed the looks that crossed the beast's face: shock, amazement, and fear. KQB? What are you doing here? I thought the Yondaime killed you, said Naruto. How did you get those eyes, Ninjin? The QB asked. Could this be a jujutsu? I have noticed that my eyesight has changed, becoming better, and now the QB has made a remark about them. Maybe I could ask him to tell me about them, Naruto mused. What eyes do you speak of, QB? Naruto questioned. Those eyes, the eyes of my father. Although it does resemble those eyes as well, QB said, the last part more to himself. Father? I thought the tailed beasts are concentrated masses of chakra given form and sentience. How can you have a father then? And what do you mean by those eyes? Naruto asked, confused as to how a being such as the QB could have a father, and also wondering which other eyes his resembled. He didn't even want to think about how powerful such a person must be. I don't expect you to understand, Ninjin, and I don't owe you any explanations, QB growled out. All right then, QB. How are you here though? Where is here even? You ask a lot of questions, Ninjin, said QB. Your questions are provoking me. Come on, Q. I need to know where I am to know how to go back, Naruto whined. Don't ever call me Q again. Got that? QB growled out. Okay, don't get your tails in a bunch. Just tell me where I am, please. If it will get you out of here sooner, I'll tell you. You are currently in your mindscape, and I am here because your precious Yondaime sealed me inside you, QB said, grinning with pleasure seeing the look on Naruto's face at the latest revelation. The Yondaime sealed the QB in me? But why would he do that? Is that why the whole village hates me? Of course that must be it. I can't believe I once considered him my hero. Naruto thought, going off on a tirade in his mind. Why did you destroy Konoha, you stupid fox? This is all your fault. Naruto screamed at the QB. The QB, not taking lightly to this accusation, roared his reply to Naruto in anger. Don't you raise your voice at me, brat. If it were not for this seal, I would have crushed you beneath my paws. I was controlled into attacking your village, and that's the only reason there is still a village left standing. I wish I had been giving free rein to do as I wanted. You wouldn't be standing here today. Hearing this, Naruto became greatly enraged at the QB. He caused all that destruction and wasn't even sorry about it. And why should I care for any of you people? All you humans have done is capture me and my kind and use as weapons. You all deserve everything I did and more. Hearing this reduced Naruto's anger considerably. He was still upset by what the QB did to him and to Konoha, but he now understood, even if only a little, why the QB did that without any apologies. To him, Konoha was his home, and the people were like his family, even if they didn't like him. But to the QB, Konoha was his prison, and the people, his captors. He didn't know how he would react if he were in QB's shoes, and so he couldn't judge him. I'm sorry, QB. I didn't see it your way. Naruto apologized. Just leave Ninjin. I don't need your apology. QB demanded, noticing that Naruto was waking up outside his mind. How am I supposed to do that? Naruto asked. Oh, it seems like our discussion will have to wait for another time. See you again, QB. Naruto said to the QB, as if he didn't notice the displeasure the QB had for talking to him. In the real world, Tsunade was discussing with Shizen about a few hospital-related issues while waiting for Naruto to wake up. Tsunade knew he would be regaining consciousness anytime soon, and as if on cue, Naruto began to stir. Seeing this, Tsunade rushed to his side in an instant and started gushing over him. Oh my baby, Why did you have to make Mama so worried? Hearing his mother's voice, Naruto opened his eyes to see her. This gave Tsunade and Shizen the biggest shock of their lives, seeing that Naruto's eyes had changed. Naruto-kun, your eyes. Tsunade gasped out. Chapter 3. Naruto had just regained consciousness after being knocked out and meeting the Kyuubi, and the first thing he saw was his mother's and Shizun's shocked expressions. He thought he heard his mother say something, but with the cobwebs still in his head, he couldn't make out what it was. Mom? Nei-chan, where am I? Naruto asked. You are in the hospital. Tsunade answered him. You were brought here by an ANBU team when they found you unconscious in the forest of death. Tsunade continued, explaining to Naruto how he got to the hospital. Why were you even anywhere near there, Naruto? I thought I told you to always stay at the compound so that things like this don't happen. Tsunade asked Naruto, worry etched in her voice. I am sorry, Ma. I was just so bored and I wanted to take a break from training and look around the village. I didn't think something like that would actually happen, Naruto said in his defense, though apologetically. Obviously, you didn't think something like that would happen or you wouldn't have gone there, Tsunade replied, frustrated over her son's stubbornness. But if you had listened to me, this whole issue could have been avoided. But it wasn't without merits, Mom. I managed to access my chakra, Naruto said excitedly. Tsunade couldn't say she shared Naruto's excitement over that particular achievement. Now that he had accessed his chakra, she knew it would be even harder to keep him away from the shinobi life. She knew that being a Senju, Jinchuriki, and son of a Hokage, there was little she could do to keep him from that life. But it had taken so many of her loved ones from her that she couldn't but try. Before you get all excited, tell me everything that happened. Tsunade commanded in a firm voice. At his mother's command, Naruto recounted everything that happened from the time he finished his training till he fell unconscious. Tsunade, while listening to Naruto, had to restrain herself from going over to kill Danzo herself. She knew that the men with the blank masks with the kanji for root on it had to be Danzo's men. While Tsunade was thinking, Hiruzen Sarutobi, her teacher and the Sandaime Hokage, entered the hospital room, having heard from his ANBU that Naruto was found unconscious. Naruto was like a grandson to him, and he made it a point of great importance to keep him safe. Hi, Gigi, Naruto said, seeing his grandfather figure enter the room. Good afternoon, Sandaime-sama. Shizen greeted her leader respectfully. I will be going now, Sandaime-sama, Tsunade-sama. Rest well, Naruto-kun. I will come by to see you later, Shizen said as she exited the room. Hearing this, Tsunade was knocked out of her thoughts and looked to see her sensei standing inside the room. The professor, however, was experiencing shock unlike any he had ever had before. He had fought in 3 shinobi wars and been Hokage for decades. He had also seen Minato Senju, his successor, decimate an army with the Hiraishin in no time at all, and despite being a master of the poker face, he couldn't keep the shock of his face when he saw Naruto's eyes. Many people, shinobi included, would have been clueless about what those eyes really were, but not him. Hiruzen knew that he wasn't the most knowledgeable when it came to those eyes, but he knew enough to be shocked and a little terrified about the re-emergence of those eyes. Naruto, what happened to your eyes? Hiruzen gasped out. Sensei, do you know something? You look like you have seen a ghost, Tsunade said, seeing that her sensei had a look of shocked recognition on his face. Maybe that is because this is like seeing a ghost. Hiruzen replied. Naruto-kun, have you seen the change in your eyes? Hiruzen asked. Yes, GG, I have. I saw it when I met the Kyuubi. What? You met the Kyuubi? Why didn't you tell me about it? Tsunade screamed. I was going to tell you about it, but then GG came in. Naruto answered quickly to avoid his mother's wrath. Naruto-kun, did you speak with the Kyuubi? Hiruzen asked, worried about Naruto meeting the Kyuubi so soon. You should know that you cannot trust him at all. He will do and say anything to get out of that seal, and if he does, Konoha is doomed. So I guess he was lying when he told me about the Yondaime sealing him in me, huh? How could you both keep something like this from me? Naruto asked, his tone showing he was hurt. Tsunade chose this time to speak. Naruto-kun, please understand that we didn't mean to betray your trust, but we didn't think you were old enough to hear this. Even with your speedy growth and sharp intellect, something like this is still too much for a child your age to take in. But we still love you, and will do anything to protect you. We never expected things to end up as they did, Naruto-kun, but when the Kyuubi was released, it had to be sealed again, and you were the only one that could contain a being like the Kyuubi. Hiruzen added in order to placate Naruto. So I guess the Yondaime chose his cousin, right? Naruto said sullenly. A flinch was shared by both Tsunade and Hiruzen when they heard Naruto refer to Minato as his cousin. They both knew they would have to tell him the truth soon. Minato wanted you to have a great life, Naruto. He would have liked to be with you and guide you as well, but as I said before, only you could have restrained the Kyuubi, and he trusted you alone with that task. Hiruzen said, but why would he trust me with it? Naruto asked, confused about how the yondaime could be so trusting of him to restrain the Kyuubi when he didn't even know him. Because he is your father, Tsunade said out of the blue, tears gathering in her eyes. She knew that this could end up going terrible for her, and that Naruto could end up hating her or rejecting her as his mother with this new revelation. But she also believed he had to know, and keeping it from him any longer could cause even worse resentment later on. Haim, what are you doing? Hiruzen asked his student. He definitely wasn't expecting Tsunade to tell Naruto the truth. I think he deserves to know the truth, sensei. Naruto-kun, Minato trusted you because he knew his son could do it. He believed in you, and so did Kushina, your mother. Tsunade said, tears already falling from her eyes, particularly at being reminded that Naruto was not her biological son. Naruto was distraught. His 4-year-old mind had briefly shut down with the shocking revelation. You are my mother? Naruto asked, his hurt tone only serving to break Tsunade's heart further. Naruto-kun, please let us explain before you react. Hiruzen pleaded. Naruto, being too emotionally drained to resist or reply, just nodded his head. Tsunade, deciding it was best that she did the talking, continued. Minato was my nephew, as you know, and after his mother, my sister, died, he was all I had left, and I treated him and loved him as my own son. When he met your mother, Kushina, I was elated that he had found someone to love, especially one as strong, confident, and kind-hearted as she was. Tsunade said with a faraway look, remembering her nephew and his wife. Kushina eventually became like a daughter to me, and when she found out she was pregnant, we were all ecstatic and eagerly awaited your birth. Minato and Kushina were the happiest I had ever seen them when they heard that they were going to be parents. They had both planned all that they were going to teach you and how they were going to raise you, but the Kyuubi incident sent all the plans into disarray. Tsunade continued, her facial expression turning grim as she recalled the night of the Kyuubi's attack. However, she went on with her explanation. Although I wasn't in the village when the Kyuubi attacked, I know that Minato would not have trusted anyone else but you to hold the Kyuubi because you are his and Kushina's son. Hiruzen decided to add his contribution and thoughts on the matter. What Tsunade said is true, Naruto-kun. However, even in a practical point of view, no one else but you could have held the Kyuubi back. Naruto looked curious about what the Sandaime could mean by that. What do you mean by that, Gigi? Naruto asked. The Bijou are concentrated masses of chakra given form and sentience, and their chakra is much more potent than regular chakra. Even sealing the Ichibi, One-Tails, requires a newborn baby because their chakra network is still flexible and malleable enough to take the intrusion of such potent chakra. However, with the Kyuubi, only one of Uzumaki heritage, and perhaps Senju as well, seeing as the Senju are distant cousins of the Uzumaki, can restrain the Kyuubi because of their amazing life force and chakra. Hiruzen answered. Naruto was able to understand why he was chosen as the Kyuubi Jinchuriki. His parents trusted him, and he alone fit the criteria for a Jinchuriki of the Kyuubi. It was a great responsibility, he knew, but he was the only one who could handle it, and he was going to give it his all. Giving it his all, however, included handling the hate of the villagers. He knew that the village had every right to hate the Kyuubi. They weren't with his great-grandparents at the Valley of the End in the battle against Madara, when his great-grandparents decided to seal away the Kyuubi and his great-grandmother, Mido Uzumaki. So their hatred of the Kyuubi, who destroyed their home and killed their loved ones, was understandable. Hating him, however, was a different story. He was as much a victim as the rest of them were, and yet he had to deal with the stigma of being the holder of the cause of so much destruction. The villagers, though, would not see things this way. They were blinded by their hatred, and he was the only one they saw to blame. Naruto knew that he had a choice to make, knowing all this. He could hate the villagers and give them as much as they gave him, or he could bear their hate and aim to rise above it and get them to acknowledge him. Although the former would be easier for anyone, Naruto included, he could not see himself living with so much hate in his heart, especially for people that his parents and ancestors had given their lives for. He couldn't really bring himself to hate them, so he decided he would try and get the villagers to accept him for him, however difficult and long it would be for that to happen. As far as Tsunade not being his biological mother, Naruto wasn't concerned. Tsunade loved him as any mother would love their child, and that was enough for her to be his mother. From what he heard from her and Hiruzen, he knew that his biological mother, Kushina, would have loved to be with him to raise him, teach him, and love him, and that was enough for him to love her as well. He had to be one of the luckiest people around, right? Having two women love him unconditionally, Yes, he was. Thank you for telling me, Gigi, Ka-chan. Naruto said, after some minutes of silence. For Tsunade, she had never felt so relieved in a long time, perhaps ever, to hear Naruto call her mother. It meant that he still considered her his mother despite the new revelation, and with his level of intelligence, she knew that he understood what had been said and its consequences. Tsunade left her position to embrace her son, tears in her eyes. She was truly happy that she had crossed this major hurdle successfully. Hiruzen, after letting the mother and son duo have their moment, decided to get down to business. He did a few hand seals to seal the room off from any intrusions, and the room glowed blue momentarily before returning to normal. Now that you know the truth, Naruto-kun, we have to talk more about your eyes. From what little I know of those eyes, they belong to the Rikuta Sennin, Sage of Six Paths. Both Tsunade and Naruto froze when they heard this. The Rikuta Sennin was known by anyone with enough knowledge of the shinobi way as the father of shinobi. It was his actions that led to humans being able to wield chakra, and he was the original Kami no Shinobi, god of shinobi. Hiruzen then continued his explanation. The Rinnegan is known as the eyes of the Rikuta Sennin, although it was regarded for a long time as only a myth, and is the most powerful of the three great Dijitsu. Not much is known, however, of the Rinnegan as regards its abilities. Well, Kyuubi did say something like that. Naruto told the occupants of the room. This got the Sandaime and Tsunade curious, eager to know what the Kyuubi knew about the Rinnegan. He asked how I had the eyes of his father, although he also said that they looked more like those eyes. I have no idea what he meant by that, though. Naruto continued. Why would he call the Rikuta Sennin his father? Tsunade asked. Legends say that the Rikuta Sennin, after defeating a beast of unrivaled power, formed the Bija. If that is true, then it would explain why the Kyuubi referred to the sage as his father. However, as regards what he meant by those eyes, your eyes do not exactly fit the description of the Rinnegan. Perhaps the Kyuubi has seen a Dijitsu with a closer resemblance. Hiruzen theorized. After hearing all that had been said, Naruto decided to move the conversation to the matter of his training. Well, regardless of whose eyes I have, I will need to increase my training. The sooner I get control over my Dijitsu, the better for me, I would say. Tsunade, however, wasn't sure how she felt about Naruto having more training at such a young age. At 4 years of age, she wanted Naruto to have a few more years before any serious training, and she was going to say something about it. Naruto-kun, you should wait for a while before you start any serious training. You are only 4 years old. However, it was Hiruzen that replied her. With the eyes of the sage awakened in him, Naruto may not have a choice but to start now. Jiraiya will know a lot more about these eyes than I do, so I would send for him, and then we can hear his input. But I think that we will have to get started on his training. Tsunade, though conflicted, decided that she should let Naruto decide on what he would want to do. Naruto-kun, it's your training. What would you rather do? Tsunade asked. Naruto, without any hesitation, said, Yes, Ka-chan, I would like to begin my training. Though I think we should wait for Ero-sennin to come back so that we can hear what he knows about my eyes. All right, Naruto-kun. We will do it your way. Tsunade acceded. All right, let me leave you to rest, Naruto. I will inform the both of you when Jiraiya arrives the village. Hiruzen said, and then proceeded to leave the mother and son alone. 3 days later, it was 3 days before Jiraiya came back to the village. He had seen the Sandaime's message to come back immediately, and he knew it must be important. The urgent undertone and the fact that his sensei didn't tell him what was so urgent told him that it must have been serious. So he quickly put things in order and hurried back to the village. Anyone who saw Naruto knew that he was practically made to be a shinobi. He had the brains, the talent, and everything he could possibly need to succeed, and Jiraiya was determined to help him fulfill his destiny. He was going to be better than his father, that Jiraiya could tell. That is, if everything goes well, Jiraiya would add. Jiraiya arrived at the gates to see the 2 chunin that had been dubbed the Eternal Gate Guards. They had been gate guards for quite a while, and Jiraiya suspected that they would soon have to be retired. Nevertheless, they did their jobs well. After being allowed entry into the village, without any hassle, perks of being a war hero, a Sannin, and a shinobi recognized everywhere, Jiraiya headed straight for the Hokage Tower to see his sensei. Of course, he wasn't going to use the stairs. They were too common and regular for the gallant Jiraiya. So he went through the windows instead. Hello, sensei. Jiraiya greeted, a smirk appearing on his face when he noticed that his sensei hadn't sensed him. Hiruzen was slightly disappointed in himself for being snuck up on, even by someone with the stealth capabilities that his student Jiraiya had. He figured that was because he was in his office, surrounded by ANBU officials, but that was no excuse for a shinobi. They needed to be alert all the time. It's good to see you, Jiraiya-kun. How's the spy network faring? It's good to see you as well, Sensei. Konoha is safe for now. The other great villages are staying put for now, and we have been able to mask the severity of the blow dealt to our military force. Jiraiya replied as Sensei. Now, what did you want to see me for? Ah, yes. It seems that the eyes of the sage have manifested in one of our own. Hiruzen said. Jiraiya was floored by the news he had just heard. Of all the things that he imagined his sensei had for him, this was not even among them. The utter ludicrousness of such a thought. It was something that he hadn't expected to see, not after Nagato. Even in his former student, he hadn't expected to see the fabled eyes of the sage. Finding out that someone else had the Rinnegan was truly shocking. What? How could it be? Who has awakened the Rinnegan sensei? Jiraiya asked rapidly. Hiruzen had a faint smirk on his face, knowing that his student will flip out and be even more shocked when he tells him who exactly awakened the Rinnegan. I guess Naruto-kun was more special than we all thought he was. Hiruzen said, and was not disappointed when he saw Jiraiya's face pale considerably. I was quite shocked myself when I saw them, Jiraiya. However, seeing as you are probably the most knowledgeable about the Rinnegan in the village, we decided to wait for you to arrive and check up on him. Not having quite recovered, Jiraiya said. When can I see him, Sensei? I was only waiting for you to arrive first. I will send for them immediately, Hiruzen said. With a spike of his chakra, an ANBU agent appeared before the Hokage. Inform Tsunade that she and Naruto are to meet me and Jiraiya here now, Hiruzen ordered. With a shout of "Hi," the ANBU agent went to execute his leader's orders. Tsunade and Naruto arrived soon after to meet Hiruzen and Jiraiya waiting for them. Despite already knowing that Naruto had the Rinnegan, seeing it for himself was further shocking for Jiraiya. However, he noticed that his Rinnegan wasn't the same as Nagato's. Ero-senin, Naruto exclaimed happily, seeing Jiraiya. Gaki, how many times have I told you not to call me that, especially not in public? Jiraiya grumbled. I thought you were a proud super pervert, Jiraiya, Tsunade said, a growing smirk on her face. I am a super pervert. Never forget that. Still, it hurts my reputation, Jiraiya said defensively. Naruto scoffed. You have no reputation left, Ero-senin. Naruto said. Hiruzen, seeing that the direction the conversation was going, decided to get down to business. While the topic of your reputation, or lack of it, is interesting to discuss, that is not why we are here. I am sure you have seen the Jujutsu and have recognized that it is not exactly as the Rinnegan is described. Yes, Sensei. The Rinnegan that my late student had did not have the Tomo. As far as I know, only the Sharingan has that. Jiraiya said. I thought so as well. Maybe this is a new Jujutsu, or it could be the combination of the Rinnegan and the Sharingan. Hiruzen said. But we won't know for sure until Naruto-kun uses it. You are right, Sensei. Naruto, have you experimented with those eyes at all? Jiraiya asked. Not yet, Ero-senin. Since I left the hospital, Kachan asked me to lay off any form of training until you arrived. Naruto said. All right, that's probably the right choice. Jiraiya said. So, when am I going to start proper training, and who is going to train me? Naruto asked. Well, I must have some input in your training, Naruto-kun, Tsunade said. I'm going to train you in Iri-ninjutsu and the family techniques. Plus, that will be a good opportunity to make sure you don't kill yourself training. Tsunade said. That will be good, Tsunade. You and Jiraiya will take over his training. I'm sure Kakashi would love to have some input on his days off. Hiruzen said. Perfect. Now that we have that settled, Naruto, we will begin training tomorrow at 8 o'clock. Jiraiya said. All right, Ero-senin. I'll see you then. Naruto said. We will be using the Senju clan training grounds. Jiraiya, I'm sure you know your way there. Yes, I do, Haim. I'll see you both there tomorrow, Jiraiya said. The next day, the sun had risen above Konoha, bathing the village in its warm, golden light. The birds were up and tweeting, and the trees were green as ever. Jiraiya was making his way over to the Senju clan compound. It was 7 a.m. He figured Tsunade wouldn't mind treating him to some breakfast before they began Naruto's training. He had spent quite some time after leaving the Hokage's office thinking about how to go about Naruto's training. He knew he would have to leave the village soon, though. His spy network was too important to be left alone for too long. He wasn't worried, though. Tsunade would be able to handle his training alone when he was away. He quickly arrived at the Senju compound and entered it. He made his way to the clan head house and knocked to be allowed entrance. Before long, the door opened to reveal Shizen in her morning robes. Good morning, Jiraiya-sama. Tsunade-sama mentioned that you were in the village. I hope all is well with you. Jiraiya smiled. Shizen had always been a sweet and kind-hearted girl. All is well, Shizen. Thanks for asking. How are you? Jiraiya replied. I am fine, Jiraiya-sama. Thanks for asking. Shizen answered. Please come in. A voice that he knew belonged to Naruto spoke up as he entered into the house. Good morning, Erosenin. Good morning to you too, Gaki. Jiraiya replied, a fond smile on his face. However, he was still not used to seeing his Dijitsu. Where is your mother? Jiraiya asked. Over here, pervert, Tsunade replied, entering into the parlor. Oh, hey Haim. I hope you all haven't eaten without me. No, we haven't. But you aren't eating here either. Why didn't you eat before coming here? Tsunade said. Haim, can't you feed a poor man in need of food? Especially one who is going to be training your son, Jiraiya said, trying and failing to execute the puppy dog eyes. All right, you don't have to scare everyone with the face you are making, Tsunade said. Hearing Tsunade's statement caused Jiraiya to go into a temporary depression, which he promptly came out of when the food was served. After breakfast was done, Jiraiya, Tsunade, and Naruto went out to the training grounds to begin Naruto's training. All right, Erosenin, what are we going to begin with? Naruto asked. I have been thinking about that, but first I will need to know what you know about the shinobi arts. Jiraiya replied. Well, I have read everything about the basics of ninjutsu, taijutsu, genjutsu, and fuinjutsu. I also know about chakra control, manipulation, and transformation. Chakra is produced by the combination of the physical and spiritual energies in the body. This chakra can then be used to perform ninjutsu, genjutsu, and other shinobi arts. Taijutsu involves hand-to-hand combat and can be augmented with chakra. Chakra control is an important part of being a shinobi. Any shinobi without proper chakra control will waste unnecessary chakra when using it and will find it difficult to use techniques like genjutsu and iri ninjutsu, which require fine control of chakra. Some common chakra control methods are the leaf concentration exercise, tree walking, water walking, and meditation. There are 5 basic elemental natures. These define the process of elemental transformation. They are Keton, Futon, Raiton, Doton, and Suiton. There are other more advanced elements. However, using them usually requires a Kekkei Genkai. In order to execute ninjutsu, both chakra manipulation and transformation are necessary. Naruto said. Jiraiya was very impressed. A 4-year-old boy knowing all of these, even if it was just the basics, was really impressive. That is good, Naruto. Since you have such a good grasp on the basics of the shinobi arts, how about we start off with chakra control? What do you think, Haim? Tsunade had a smile on her face from hearing Naruto's knowledge of the basics, and also because they were going to start with one of her favorite aspects of being a shinobi. She had always regarded having perfect chakra control to be highly important, but she understood that it was very difficult for people to have the level of chakra control that members of the Senju clan naturally possessed. But with Naruto, that shouldn't be a problem at all. That is perfect. We will begin with the leaf concentration exercise, Tsunade said. Taking a leaf in her hand, Tsunade handed it to Naruto. You have to make this leaf stick to your forehead with only chakra, Naruto-kun. Taking the leaf in his hand, Naruto concentrated on molding his chakra. He knew that he would need only a very small bit of chakra, and so that is what he did. Placing the leaf on his forehead, Naruto applied chakra to it, causing it to stick to his forehead perfectly. Seeing this, Tsunade had a proud smirk while Jiraiya smiled proudly. They both expected something like this happening. It appears that you have very good chakra control despite having enormous chakra reserves, Naruto, Jiraiya said. Yes, it appears so. However, you will still be practicing chakra control. Nothing but perfect chakra control will suffice, Naruto-kun, Tsunade added. Well then, are we going to move to the tree walking exercise or what? Naruto asked, a determined look in his eyes. Let's get to it then, Jiraiya said. Naruto, Tsunade, and Jiraiya walked to one of the many trees in the Senju compound, which they intended to use for the next step in Naruto's training. I'm sure you already know how this goes, Naruto-kun, Tsunade said, getting a nod in affirmation from Naruto. Hi. I am to channel the right amount of chakra to stick to the tree and maintain it while running up and down the tree. Using too much chakra will cause me to be blasted off, and if I use too little chakra, I won't stick to the tree. Naruto said. Good one, Masuko-san. Are you ready? Hi. I am ready, Kaa-chan. Naruto said. Naruto then walked up to the tree and felt for his chakra once more. He could feel how enormous but controlled it was. He was able to call up the exact amount that he wanted, and so he did. Placing his right leg on the tree, he tested to see how much chakra was required to properly stick to it, and when he did, he placed his left leg on the tree and channeled the exact amount through it. Seeing how easy it was to maintain the flow of chakra, Naruto took another step and then another, and then a few more steps before proceeding to a jog, and then a sprint up the tree. Jiraiya and Tsunade were both floored seeing this. They both knew that members of the Senju clan had an easier time controlling their chakra. However, it wasn't meant to be this easy. No one, as far as they knew, ever mastered the tree walking exercise in one go. Amazing! How can he do this so easily, Haim? Jiraiya asked, a mixture of pride and envy in his voice. I have no idea, Jiraiya. I expected him to fumble at least a few times on this one. Tsunade said, shocked herself by what she was seeing. Never have I seen or heard of anyone with naturally perfect control of their chakra. Perhaps it could be one of the advantages of the Rinnegan. Jiraiya said, huh? You think so? Tsunade said, my late student always had an extraordinarily easy time with controlling his chakra. Seeing Naruto now, I am more certain that it is an advantage the Rinnegan gives. Jiraiya replied. Lucky brat, Jiraiya grumbled. He himself had to train extra hard to get his chakra under control. Tsunade smirked seeing Jiraiya's face. Jealous much, Jiraiya? Jiraiya merely scoffed in reply. Seeing that Naruto had run up and down the tree a number of times, Jiraiya and Tsunade both agreed that it was time to move on to something else. That's enough, Naruto, Jiraiya said, getting Naruto's attention. Naruto then back-flipped off the top of the tree and nimbly landed on the floor, impressing his mother and godfather by his athleticism and instinctual execution of shinobi techniques. Why don't we move on to another branch of our training, Naruto? Here's the schedule I think your training should follow. 8 to 10 o'clock, physical training. 10 to 11 o'clock, chakra control training. 11 to 12 o'clock, fuinjutsu training. 12 to 1 o'clock, lunch and rest. 1 to 3 o'clock, ninjutsu training. 3 to 5 o'clock, academics, history, math, science, tactics. 5 to 6 o'clock, meditation. This is great, Ero-sennin. I am so excited about beginning my training. Just watch. I'll be the best shinobi to walk this earth. Naruto set a determined grin on his face. Hold your horses, Gaki. You must be ready to put in 101% every day if you want to be the best. Having a Dijitsu doesn't substitute hard work at all, Jiraiya said. He knew that Naruto could very well be the best shinobi in history. In fact, he was counting on it. However, he wanted to make sure that Naruto had the right attitude needed to be not only the best shinobi, but a good person as well. I hear you, Ero-sennin. Don't worry. I won't ever stop working hard in everything I do, and I'll make everyone proud. I promise, Naruto said. Tsunade smiled proudly, hearing what Naruto said. She knew he meant it. I know you will, Misuko. So do I, Naruto, Jiraiya said. Another thing, I will have to leave the village from time to time, so I won't be able to focus on your training. However, I know that your mother is more than capable of handling your training in my absence. Jiraiya added, that's all right, Ero-sennin. Don't you worry, very soon I will be strong enough to defeat even you, Naruto said. Jiraiya only smiled at that, thinking to himself, I know you will, Naruto. I hope you are watching, Nagato. I won't fail this time. Chapter 4. It had been a whole year since Naruto began his training. As planned, Jiraiya had alternated between being in the village and going out of it to handle his spy network. While Jiraiya was in the village, he and Tsunade handled Naruto's training with the occasional input from Kakashi, who had taken up an elder brother role in Naruto's life. Naruto stood at 5 feet 0 inches with red hair extending slightly past his neck. He had his left eye obstructed from view by one of his bangs and the other went down the side of his face, reaching his chin. He had a lean face with delicate facial features and bright blue eyes. He had taken to wearing a short-sleeved green shirt with black shorts and black shinobi sandals. He also wore a black, fingerless glove with metal plating on his left hand. Over the course of the year, Naruto had made great progress in his training. He wanted to get the basics of the shinobi arts perfectly before moving on to the more advanced aspects, so he focused on building his speed, strength, improving his reflexes, mastering his Sharingan jutsu, and building perfect chakra control. It was quickly discovered that Naruto was a natural in everything he tried. His already impressive, for his age, speed was increased as was his strength, and his chakra control was perfect. Another discovery that was made was that his Dijitsu had all the abilities of a 3-tomo Sharingan, meaning that he could predict movements, copy ninjutsu and taijutsu, cast genjutsu with his Dijitsu, and do all that a fully matured Sharingan can do. As a result of this, his reflexes and Sharingan jutsu skills were greatly improved. He also learned some ninjutsu as well. Jiraiya informed Naruto and Tsunade that the Rinnegan allowed its user to use and master all 5 basic elements, and when Naruto tested his affinities, it showed that he had extremely powerful affinities to all the elements. It wasn't known if the Rinnegan allowed the user to combine elements, though. Jiraiya also informed them that his former student, Nagato, was able to master all the 5 basic elements by the age of 10. How amazing the Rinnegan must be. So it wasn't much of a surprise that Naruto was able to perform a few ninjutsu already. He hadn't begun elemental transformation training yet, but he had learnt 5 jutsu already. He had learnt a C-rank Katan Jutsu, Katan, Gokaku no Jutsu, Fire Style, Great Fireball Technique, a fire style technique that involves converting one's chakra into a fire and expelling it either as a ball of fire or as a continuous flamethrower. He also learned a D-rank Suiton Jutsu, Suiton, Hachi Shokushu, Water Release, 8 Tentacles Technique. Using this technique, he could manipulate water to form 8 arms on their backs with which he could attack. He also learned a C-rank Suiton Ninjutsu, Suiton, Mizurappa, Water Release, Violent Water Wave. With this jutsu, Naruto could expel a strong jet of water at his opponents. He also learned a D-rank Doton Jutsu, Doton, Shinjuzanshu no Jutsu, Earth Release, Double Suicide Decapitation Technique. This jutsu allows Naruto to travel through the ground to appear below their target and pull them into the ground, immobilizing them. He also learned the Doton, Doria Heki, Earth Release, Earth-style wall. With this technique, Naruto could form a wall of earth either by manipulating existing earth or by spitting mud out of his mouth. Finally, Naruto learned Futon, Daitapa, Wind Release, Great Breakthrough, a C-rank technique. With this technique, Naruto is able to breath out a powerful gust of wind capable of leveling most obstacles. Although he hadn't learned a lot of ninjutsu yet, Naruto decided to master the few he knew till he could do them with less hand seals. The goal for him was to be able to do any ninjutsu without the need for hand seals, but that would require him mastering the nature transformation for all the elements. Over the course of the year, Naruto and his trainers had noticed that Naruto's chakra was not only enormous, which they knew already, but it was also extremely potent. Once, when Jiraiya wanted to test how much chakra he had, he asked Naruto to begin expelling his chakra. In reply, Naruto placed his hands in the ram seal and began feeling for his chakra. Quickly finding it, he began drawing it out, and the result was an extremely potent burst of chakra that cracked the ground around them, wreaking so much destruction on the training ground and the trees that surrounded them. Tsunade proceeded to give Jiraiya one of the worst beatings of the many she had given him over the years for asking her son to do something like that, destroying the place in the process. Because of his powerful chakra, the jutsu that Naruto did became greatly amplified. A D-rank technique could become as powerful as a B-rank even, when Naruto performed it. Another aspect of the shinobi arts that Naruto excelled at was Fuinjutsu. Being part Uzumaki, it was little wonder that he displayed extraordinary prowess in the art. He was already at level 5 out of 10 possible levels in Fuinjutsu. Of course, when you reach level 10 there was still work to do. At level 10, one could branch out and begin experimenting with Fuinjutsu. At the level he was, Naruto was able to create and modify sealing tags, explosive tags, paralysis and weight seals, and some barrier seals. Naruto, though, was fascinated by his great-great-grandmother's use of Fuinjutsu. She was able to even write seals in the air using her chakra. Mito Uzumaki was proof that Fuinjutsu could be as dangerous as, if not more than, ninjutsu, and he wanted to be a master of that art. Having something like Fuinjutsu in his arsenal could only make him a more dangerous shinobi. His father, Minato Senju, also used Fuinjutsu in that manner as well. He had read and heard from his Tsunade, Jiraiya, and even Kakashi, whenever he asked for stories about his father, that Minato could also write seals in the air using his chakra. Another thing he could do that gave Naruto ideas to improve upon was place his Hiraishin Shiki formula on people with but a simple touch. The myriad of things he could use that for always made Naruto excited whenever he thought about it. With his Dijitsu, though, he had made little headway. Perhaps finding out that he had all the abilities of a fully matured Sharingan should be worthy of being considered a headway, but he just knew that his Dijitsu could do so much more. However, he was only 5 years old, so he wasn't bothered too much by it. Speaking of the Sharingan portion of his Dijitsu, Kakashi had been training Naruto in it. He wasn't called Sharingan no Kakashi, Kakashi of the Sharingan, for nothing. Even members of the Uchiha clan recognized his ability with it, for a non-Uchiha at least. All in all, Naruto was a very skilled 5-year-old. Everyone that knew of his ability always knew he was a special child, even more so than the other many prodigies that Konoha has witnessed over the years. With his Jujutsu and its yet unknown abilities, he could very well surpass all that have ever walked the elemental nations. Only, of course, if everything went well. However, with all his accomplishments in his training, something still wasn't right in Naruto's world. He had his mother, his sister figure, his godfather, his elder brother figure, and even the Hokage, his Gigi, and while he loved every one of them dearly, the closest to his age was Kakashi, who was 19 years old. Naruto wanted a friend his age, and he knew where to find one. The most obvious place to find a friend would be the park, which is where most of the children in the village gathered to play. The park was a wide, open field overlaid with grass, with swing sets, seesaws, and other playground equipment. Both civilian and shinobi children could be found there, so it should be the first place that a boy in need of a friend would look. However, it was for that very reason that Naruto steered clear of the park. Naruto had noticed that the shinobi in the village, and those from shinobi families, could tolerate him. Some even went as far as to be friendly with him. But the civilians hated his guts. They never liked him and would sneer at him whenever they saw him. Anyway, he had the perfect place to find a friend. He just had to convince his mother to let him go. Heading to the garden where Tsunade was seated, reading a book, Naruto decided it was as good a time as any to make his request. "Good afternoon, Ka-chan. You are looking beautiful this morning. Did you do something new to your hair? Maybe a new shampoo, or maybe a new bathing soap or body lotion. You are looking truly radiant," Naruto said with the brightest smile on his face in an attempt at patronizing his mother. Tsunade smiled at him, amused by his attempt at flattery. She knew he wanted something, so she decided to get to the point. "What do you want, Naruto-kun?" "Ah, discerning as always, Kaya-chan. Anyway, I need your permission to go somewhere." "Oh? Where do you want to go to?" "It's the youth ninjutsu competition, Kaya-chan. Why would you want to compete in that thing, Masuko? You probably won't find any serious competition there." Tsunade said, "That's not why I want to go, Kaya-chan. Although I love you, Shizune-chan, Kakashi Nii-san, Ero-senin, and Gigi very much, I would like to have friends around my own age. Maybe I could find one that's unbiased towards me there." If Tsunade was honest with herself, she had also thought about her son's lack of friends around his age group. She knew why it had to be so for now, but she hoped that the friends and family he had would get his mind off that. "Okay, Naruto-kun, you can go, but please be very careful. You know how the villagers are. If anyone reacts violently, come back immediately." "I will, Ka-chan. I love you," Naruto said. Naruto made his way steadily to the arena where the youth ninja competition was to be held, jumping from one tree branch to the other. He preferred moving about this way to moving around on the ground in order to limit human interaction. He was unsure of what to expect, however. He was aware that people didn't like him, and he had begun to realize that the hate could have been transferred to the next generation. Regardless of this possibility, he was optimistic about his chances to make a friend today. The very thought made him giddy with excitement. All his life he had related with adults, and now he could finally have a friend his age. Somebody who could relate more with him and somebody who he could go on pranks with and act stupid with. He realized that he acted way too mature for his age because of the people he was around all the time. But if he could succeed in his quest, he would finally be able to start on getting back his childhood. Naruto finally arrived at his destination. It was a fairly large, open space that was regularly used to host public meetings and gatherings. He took a moment to scan the environment. There were people littered everywhere, some of them in little cliques, chatting animatedly. Some people were seated already, perhaps waiting for the tournament to commence. He looked to a particular spot where he guessed where the contestants were gathered. Most of them were talking aloud about how they would undoubtedly clinch the grand prize, a silver kunai. This was funny to Naruto because at least all but one of them would end up disappointed and their bragging would prove to be false. Only one person could win anyway, and although he wasn't here primarily to win the prize, he wasn't going to allow himself to lose a ninjutsu competition. However, it was the 5-year-old looking boy with shaggy brown hair, wearing a light brown long-sleeved shirt with a v-neck, gray shorts, and blue shinobi sandals that got his attention. He seemed to be the youngest of all the contestants present, but Naruto figured that he must have been trained early like he was. He recognized the boy as a member of the Inuzuka clan because of the red fang tattoos on his cheeks. It was normal for most clans to begin training their children at a young age, but they usually did that when the children turned 5 years. This kid looked to Naruto like he had only recently turned 5 years old, so Naruto concluded that either he was an extremely talented boy, or he had meager skills and had absolutely no idea what he was doing here. His mother had made him read up on all the clans in Konoha. If it was public knowledge, and even some more private knowledge, Naruto knew it. Naruto was curious about the story behind this boy's being here and decided it would be the perfect way to break the ice. Jumping off the tree branch he was on and landing on the soft grass that covered the field without a sound, Naruto went a sign up for the competition. There was a line with 3 people on it, so Naruto got in behind them and after a few minutes, he was registered. Naruto then made his way to the spot where the Inuzuka boy was. The people must have found their conversations really interesting because they seemed to not notice him. This, however, was perfect for Naruto. The less people he had to interact with, the better for him in his opinion. It wasn't that he hated the people of Konoha, although there were some that he wasn't particularly fond of, but they had shown that they didn't hold him in high esteem. Slight understatement. And so he decided to not aggravate them needlessly. It seemed the boy had finally noticed Naruto as Naruto was now only a few feet away from him and had now turned to him fully. Huh? I didn't expect to see any kids here today, the Inuzuka stated as Naruto was now in front of him. Well, you're here. And who are you calling a kid? Naruto replied. That's beside the point. And aren't you a kid? The boy said, beginning to get frustrated with this new guy. That's the only point. And yes, I am 5 years old. Naruto said to his prospective friend. This was already fun for him. Cool. I am 5 years old as well. The Inuzuka said excitedly, his slight frustration with Naruto appearing to be a thing of the past. So I figured, Naruto said. Where are my manners? I am Shinja Naruto. I am Inuzuka Kiba, the now revealed Kiba said to Naruto. Are you really a Senju? The only Senju I know of in this village is Tsunade of the Sannin. I wonder why I would lie about that, Kiba, Naruto said with a slight chuckle, but I am really a Senju. Tsunade is my mother. Wow, that's so cool. Although I wonder why I hadn't heard anything about you till now. I haven't even seen you around in the village, and I am outside a lot. Kiba said, well, you probably haven't seen me around the village because I stay indoors most of the time. I rarely come out for anything, and I don't go to the park which, I assume, is where you spend most of your time. Naruto replied, yeah, I do hang around a lot at the park. Aw man, that you must be bored all the time. I can't even imagine living like that. No offense, man, none taken. In fact, I am here hoping to rectify this anomaly. This is actually my first interaction with anyone in my age group. Well then, Naruto my man, it is my duty to show you how we kick it here in the outside world. First things first, if you really want to make friends, you should stop using big words. I am not Shikamaru, so I don't understand what you're saying. Kiba said, who's Shikamaru? Naruto asked, never mind that for now. You wouldn't know him. Now, back to what I was saying, it is really important that you don't use big words because whenever you do, what I hear is a blip, and then that part of the conversation is gone, lost forever. You understand? I comprehend your admonition, and I'll be sure address the issue and rectify it immediately, Kiba, Naruto said, a smirk making his way to his face. I truly do appreciate this service you have done me, Kiba, and I will be sure to repay the favor. Kiba blinked for a moment as if just regaining consciousness of his surroundings. You say something? He asked. Ha 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 ha, would you look at that? Maybe that's how Kakashi and II-san started saying that. Naruto laughed. Who's Kakashi? Kiba asked. Never mind that for now. You probably wouldn't know him. Naruto said with a smile. It was at this point that the tournament kicked off, with the host, a man named Suda, addressing the crowd. After welcoming them to the 21st edition of the Youth Ninja Competition, he began to call out the competitors. There were 3 judges present. All 3 of them were elderly men, probably retired shinobi. One by one they came out and performed low-ranking techniques. Most of them were Katan Jutsu as there were more people with the Katan element than any other element in Konoha. None of those that had performed received any particularly high score. The highest score that had been given was a combined score of 18, gotten by Kiba. He performed the Doton, Shuriken no Jutsu, Earth Release, Stone Shuriken technique. By taking up dirt and molding it with chakra, Kiba was able to create 5 shuriken which he then threw at a target that was available to the competitors. The shuriken proved to be as sharp as metal shuriken as they drove into the target board, but his accuracy was average, therefore he got all 6s from the judges. Kiba returned to Naruto with a smile on his face, seeing as his was the score to beat. Think you can beat that, Naruto? Kiba asked with a proud smirk on his face. Yeah, shouldn't be too hard. And the next contestant is, this should be interesting. Uchiha Sasuke, Naruto was cut off by the announcer calling out a name that wasn't his. He was surprised because he was meant to be the only one left. This proved to be false as not long after his name was called, a boy who looked to be about the same height as Naruto. He has black spiky hair with a blue tint to it, two bangs that framed his face. He also had black eyes and a handsome facial appearance. He wore a blue, high-collar, short-sleeved shirt with white shorts and blue shinobi sandals. Naruto definitely wasn't expecting to see an Uchiha in this tournament. From what he knew of the Uchiha clan, they were a very proud clan and would most likely consider a tournament like this one as to be beneath them. Not without reason, too. These games never attracted serious competition, and the Uchiha clan prided themselves as the best at ninjutsu in Konoha. "Are you Uchiha Sasuke?" the announcer asked. "Yes, I am," Sasuke confirmed. "And what jutsu will you be showing to us?" "I will be performing the Great Fireball Jutsu," Sasuke said. A number of people in the crowd that knew of the Uchiha clan's favorite jutsu smiled at having the opportunity to see it being performed by an Uchiha, especially one they recognized as the son of the clan head. Reaching for his chakra from within him, Sasuke started to convert it to pure Katan nature chakra. "Katan, Gokakyu no Jutsu," Sasuke exclaimed after going through the hand seals. Tiger ram monkey boar horse tiger. Coating his insides with chakra to prevent burning himself, Sasuke expelled a stream of fire that went on to form into a medium-sized ball of fire. Although Sasuke hadn't mastered the jutsu, it was hot enough to scorch the grass beneath it, as well as a few of the trees that were in the arena. Everyone in the arena was impressed by this. A 5-year-old performing a C-rank technique to that level was amazing to them. The judges must have been impressed as well as they gave him all 9s, ensuring that he took the lead from Kiba. Kiba was not happy about this. He had seen Sasuke a few times, and Sasuke had always ignored him and all the other kids in favor of walking with that one guy he always saw him with. Kiba believed that Sasuke considered himself to be above them because of that, an opinion that perhaps wasn't quite true. And now, this same guy had taken away his chances at leaving here with the silver kunai. He was meant to win the prize so that he could show it to his mother and sister, and then maybe they would finally start treating him as the alpha he was. Naruto, however, was thinking different thoughts from Kiba. He knew that technique, he had mastered it, but he also knew that it wasn't an easy technique to perform for a 5-year-old. This boy was talented, that he knew. Perhaps he could be his friend as well, Naruto mused. His thoughts were cut short, however, as the announcer called his name. He made his way to the podium to perform his technique and registered Kiba cheering for him to do his best and win. Perhaps now that he couldn't win anymore, he wanted him to go with the prize. This brought a smile to Naruto's face. "Are you Senja Naruto?" asked the announcer, although he knew the answer already. This boy was famous, or rather, infamous, around Konoha as the Kyuubi Jinchuriki. Personally, he had no hard feelings for Naruto. He was a former shinobi, so he understood the concept of Jinchuriki. He believed that it was a shame that the heir of one of the founding clans of Konoha was treated like the plague. Perhaps he has some skill. Suda thought. This should be interesting to see." "Yes, I am," Naruto replied. A wave of murmurs swept through the crowd at that moment, and even Sasuke had a wide-eyed look. He of course knew of the Senja clan and their prowess as shinobi. They were his clan's arch-rivals after all. But he had never known that there was a member of the Senja clan that was around his age. "And what jutsu will you be performing?" asked Suda, the announcer. "I will be performing the futon, Tope, wind release, great breakthrough." This caused even more whisperings among the crowd. Futon was the rarest elemental nature in Konoha. Only a handful of people possessed it naturally. Stilling himself and reaching for his chakra, Naruto molded a considerable amount of chakra, converted it to pure, shredding wind. With the hand seals, tiger, ox, dog, rabbit, snake, Naruto expelled a powerful gust of wind that leveled a number of the trees in the area. His performance got him a perfect score from all the judges, as everyone in the crowd was silent for a bit. Naruto was apprehensive, thinking that the people would reject him, call him a demon or something like that. Soon one man got up and began clapping. 1, 2, 3, 4, and then another joined him, and another, until majority of the crowd were up and cheering for Naruto and his performance. A few of the people, however, weren't so pleased with Naruto and his show of strength, but seeing as most of the crowd was cheering for him, they did nothing about it and quietly left the field. Naruto had a large smile on his face, more from the reception of the people than winning. He made his way over to Kiba, who had a large grin on his face as well. "Congratulations, Naruto. I'm happy it was you that won since I couldn't." "Thanks, Kiba, and I think you did well too," Naruto said. Kiba grinned, turned cocky, and he said, "Yeah, I think I did well too." The both of them shared a short laugh before Naruto spoke up. "Hey, do you know where the Uchiha went?" "No, I don't. He must have left because he was embarrassed or something." Kiba said, "That's too bad. I wanted to talk to him. Naruto said, why would you want to talk to him? He'd probably just snub you like he does everyone else. You know him? Naruto asked. No, I don't, but I've seen him around. Maybe I'm being too harsh on him, though, but we haven't spoken to each other. He's always with one particular guy every time I see him. I think you're being too harsh. He may genuinely have something else to do than play. Naruto said, maybe. It was nice meeting you, Naruto, but I have to head home now. My mom will kill me if I'm late. Kiba said, but I hope to see you around soon. That's okay, Kiba, and it was nice to meet you as well. Naruto said, perhaps we will see each other soon. But until we do, take care of yourself. And you too, man. Kiba replied. After saying bye to Kiba, Naruto began to head home. It didn't take him long to reach his home, where he met Kakashi waiting for him. Hey there, Naruto. I came looking for you, but your mother told me you had gone to find a friend at a ninja competition. Kakashi said the last part sarcastically. Hi, Nissan. And yes, I did go to find a friend, and I was quite successful if I do say so myself, Naruto replied. You did? Who is he or she? Kakashi said, a giggle escaping his lips at the last part. Will you like me to inform Kaa-chan that you are trying to corrupt me now, or after you have had lunch, Nissan? Naruto said with a mischievous smile on his face. Kakashi paled as he imagined the beatdown Tsunade would give to him if Naruto said that. She wouldn't even try to ensure it was true before sending him to the hospital. Come on, Naruto. I was only teasing. Seeing his big brother, Sharingan no Kakashi, stuttering in fear of his mother got Naruto laughing hysterically. Kakashi had a frown on his face, although it was hard to tell due to his face mask, when Naruto laughed at him and decided to burst his bubble. At least I don't have to live with such a scary woman all the time. She's your mother. Ha ha ha. How funny do you think that is, Kakashi said. He had got him there. I have nothing to worry about, Nissan. Kaa-chan adores me. Naruto replied. It was true. Naruto was the most important person to Tsunade, so he rarely got in trouble with her. And the few times he did, he was either given a light punishment or let off with a warning. Just forget it, Kakashi said, sighing in a little frustration. So did you win? Kakashi asked Naruto. Of course I did, Nissan. Naruto said, and then removed the silver kunai from his pouch and showed it to Naruto. Nice. Kakashi said, and he and Naruto shared a fist bump. I remember when I won that competition. Kakashi said, you were a part of the competition? You never told me. Naruto said, yeah, I did, a long time ago. It was at that competition I first met Obito and Rin. Kakashi had told Naruto about his former teammates, and so Naruto knew that Kakashi would probably be uncomfortable talking about them. Anyway, I met this guy, an Inuzuka. His name is Kiba, and he was really friendly. He put up a good showing at the competition too. Naruto said, ah. The Inuzuka are good people, fiercely loyal. He could turn out to be a trusted friend in the future. Yeah, but I also met, more like saw, this kid my age. His name is Uchiha Sasuke. He was able to perform the Gokakyu quite well, although he hasn't mastered it yet. The Gokakyu, you say? That's not an easy technique for a 5-year-old to perform. He must be rather talented. I thought so too. However, he left before I could talk to him. Well, of course he would leave, he lost. I can imagine that his family won't be happy that he lost to a Senju. Kakashi said, with Sasuke. Fugaku was livid. He was furious with his second son. He had just heard of Sasuke's participation in the youth ninja competition, and that alone was enough to upset him. But to hear that he lost, he felt embarrassed and upset with his son. And who did you lose to, Sasuke? Fugaku asked, his emotions showing clearly on his face. He had to wonder, though, who could beat his son. Sasuke was no Itachi, that he knew. Itachi was a once-in-a-lifetime prodigy. His son was the pride and joy of Konoha in the Uchiha clan. Regardless of this fact, he knew that Sasuke was skilled, far more skilled than the others his age in the clan. At the age of 5, he had almost mastered the Gokakyu, and that alone spoke volumes of his ability. It was a boy too, San. At this, Fugaku's eyebrows rose up, nearly reaching his hairline. There was a child that talented in the village, and he didn't know about it? Sasuke then continued, seeing as his father was not saying anything. His name is Naruto, San. Senju Naruto. This did it for Fugaku. His son had embarrassed the Uchiha clan by losing in a ninjutsu competition. The Uchiha clan had always prided themselves as the best at ninjutsu in Konoha. When this news got out to the rest of the village, with their pride wounded, the sores would be exposed to the entire village. Fugaku, however, realized just how every situation could be worse when he heard that it was a Senju that defeated his son. Once again, the Senju won. And he believed he had a good idea which Senju it was. After all, there was only one 5-year-old Senju in Konoha, Tsunade's child. He had imagined that the boy would be strong. After all, the Senju clan was a powerful clan, and the only clan capable of rivaling the Uchiha. He would need to know more about him now. Meanwhile, Sasuke was terrified. He dreaded this particular conversation he knew he would have to have with his father. From the moment he left the arena, it had been on his mind. He knew his father wanted him to be more like Itachi and was sometimes disappointed because he wasn't. He had always tried to impress his father, which is why he went for the competition. And now he had lost to a Senju. He knew about the Senju-Uchiha rivalry, and he knew that his loss was made worse because of this. No, he hadn't just disappointed his father, he had disappointed the clan. He took the initiative and made a personal decision to do everything he could to make sure the Uchiha didn't lose to the Senju anymore. To make sure he didn't lose to Naruto, Fugaku continued, "Tell me, Sasuke, how exactly did he win?" After hearing his son's recounting of Naruto's performance at the competition, Fugaku was once more, and even more, impressed with the boy. The Tope was, like the Gokakyu, a complex jutsu for a 5-year-old. However, to perform that jutsu with the mastery that the devastation Sasuke spoke of showed, was eerily like what he had seen his eldest, Itachi, do. If the Senju had their own version of Itachi in their ranks, never mind that the Senju currently comprised of 2 people, the Uchiha clan's position in the village could actually become further degraded. With all he had found out, Fugaku's anger towards Sasuke had somewhat subsided. His loss did bring Fugaku intel on this new threat to the Uchiha's position in the village, and that was not so bad in his opinion. "You may leave, Sasuke. However, we will need to step up your training." Sasuke's eyes went wide briefly from excitement. Was his father finally going to start training him personally? He always handled Itachi's training, but never his. "I'll make sure to inform your sensei about your gaffe and the need to up your training." Sasuke visibly deflated at this. Of course, his father wouldn't train someone who had failed his clan. Taking his father's silence as his cue to leave, Sasuke left his father's study. Unknown to either of them, Itachi was listening to the conversation that ensued between his father and his little brother. He was likewise shocked to hear about the skills of Senju Naruto. He of course knew about the shunned and hated Jinchuriki of the Kyuubi, but he never knew of his talent in the shinobi arts. And while he knew of the rivalry between the 2 clans, he felt his father was too harsh on his little brother. You wouldn't blame him for thinking that, though. Itachi loved his brother more than anything else, and was always more likely to take his side in every situation. But seeing the hurt on his brother's face when he found out their father wasn't going to teach him as he thought was heartbreaking for him. He was upset with how power-hungry his father was lately. That was the cause of all the friction between Fugaku and his sons, in his opinion. Fugaku wanted Sasuke to be like Itachi, and because Sasuke wasn't, he was displeased with him, which led to Sasuke feeling hurt. And that always made Itachi angry with his father. He would have to speak to his father about his treatment of Sasuke, but most important was undoing the damage that their father had done to Sasuke. Chapter 5. Thud, thud, thud. The sound of limbs smacking against the wooden stump rang throughout the clearing. Sasuke was panting heavily by now after close to an hour of training. The conversation with his father and his embarrassment at the youth ninja competition fresh on his mind. He had to get stronger faster, and if it took breaking every bone in his body to get there, he would do it. He wouldn't ever be disgraced or be a disgrace again, not if he had any choice in the matter. He had run through all of his regular drills and was now faggied out, but he still wouldn't take a break. He was determined to train till he dropped. Perhaps this was how he needed to train henceforth if he was to match his brother. "Hello, Sasuke-kun." Sasuke's eyes widened as he heard a voice come from right behind him. He hadn't even sensed anyone at all. He was truly weak, he thought. However, considering who it was that got the drop on him, he was probably being too harsh on himself. Itachi was in the AMBU after all. Turning around to find out who had spoken, Sasuke's eyes lit up in joy at who it was. His beloved brother had come to see him. "An Saiyan," Sasuke exclaimed. He loved and admired his brother more than any other person, and even the constant pressure to be more like him by his father didn't change that. "I can see you have been training a lot, Sasuke-kun, so how about you take a break with me?" Itachi said. He was happy that Sasuke was taking his training seriously now, as that would enable him protect himself better, but he was still concerned about his reasons. Itachi knew that whatever inspired a man to be better than he is couldn't be that bad, but he still wanted to make sure he got him straight mentally. "All right, Nisan. I was just about done for today anyway," Sasuke said, with a wide smile on his face. "Itachi, Seeing his brother's wide and happy smile couldn't stop the smile that appeared on his face, nor did he want to. "How have you been, Sasuke?" Itachi asked. "I have been all right, Nissan." "Mostly," Sasuke replied, his smile turning into a frown at the end. Itachi suddenly felt his mood turn sour seeing Sasuke sad. "I heard what happened at the youth ninja competition. You know you did nothing wrong, right?" Itachi said, getting no reply from Sasuke, who had his head down at being reminded of his failure. "But you would have never lost, Nissan. In fact, you never lost at anything. I'm a disappointment to the clan, aren't I?" Sasuke said in a wistful melancholy. "What do you think is the mark of the true shinobi, Sasuke?" Itachi asked. Sasuke took a moment to think before he answered the question. Nissan, I think that the true shinobi is someone like you. One who is strong and talented in all fields of the shinobi arts." A childish answer it was, and one that showed Sasuke's extreme admiration for his brother and the pedestal he subconsciously placed him on, and Itachi caught that. "Why do you think I am so strong, Sasuke?" Itachi asked his little brother. At this, a confused look appeared on Sasuke's face. Why was his brother asking him all these questions? "I don't know, Nissan. Tusan always says that you are a born genius, so I guess that's why." Sasuke concluded uncertainly. Itachi hard a reminiscent look on his face. "Have I ever told you about my life before you were born, Sasuke-kun?" "No, you haven't, Nissan." Sasuke replied. "Let me tell you a bit about it now then." Itachi said, gaining Sasuke's complete attention. "When I was 4 years old, I experienced the third Great Shinobi War. As is characteristic of war, there was death everywhere. As a young, naive child, it was a lot to take in for me. I had grown up reading about the past wars that had taken place throughout the elemental nations, but experiencing it firsthand was totally different. It helped me mature," Itachi said, and seeing that Sasuke was still listening, he continued. "Perhaps father is right in saying that I am a born genius. Even I know that the rate at which I have been able to pick up things is unnatural and not many people can do so at that level. However, it wasn't until I experienced war that I became a true shinobi, at least mentally. What I am trying to say, Sasuke, is that your level of natural talent only accounts for a fraction of your pedigree as a shinobi. When you were born, I swore that I would do everything necessary to protect you, and this I will do till my dying breath. This, I believe, is the source of my strength," Itachi said with a fond smile on his face as he spoke of his love for Sasuke. Sasuke already had tears in his eyes at Itachi's declaration, all the emotion becoming too much for him to handle. He immediately latched onto his brother and cried softly, tears of joy. After about a minute, Sasuke detached from his brother and began rubbing the tears away with his 5-year-old hands. "I know that you think you have disappointed the clan by losing at that competition, Sasuke, but do you want to know what I think?" "What do you think, Nissan?" "I think that you have the potential to be the strongest Uchiha ever," Itachi said with a smile. "You really think I can be that strong, Nissan? Even stronger than you are?" Sasuke asked, surprised and happy that his brother thought so highly of him. "Yes, I do, Sasuke, but how can I be? You are already much stronger than I am now at my age. I don't know if I can match up to you, Nissan," Sasuke said. Hearing this, Itachi knew he needed to do a bit more to get Sasuke where he needed him mentally, and he knew the story to do the trick. "What do you know of the Sannin, Sasuke?" Itachi asked. The Sannin are comprised of Orochimaru-sama, Jiraiya-sama, and Tsunade-hime. They are reputed to be among the strongest shinobi in Konoha, surpassed only by the Hokage. Sasuke answered. "That's good, Sasuke," Itachi complimented. "But let me tell you a little about their beginning. The Sannin were all a part of the same graduating class. At the age of 6, they all graduated from the academy and were placed on the same team. While Tsunade and Orochimaru showed remarkable skill and talent in various aspects of the shinobi arts, Jiraiya showed no remarkable talent or skill and struggled to grasp the things he was taught. Jiraiya finished from the academy as the dead last of the class and was only placed on the same team as Orochimaru and Tsunade to balance the teams. He seemed to be a lost cause to everyone at the time, but through grueling hard work and determination, he is now the strongest of the Sannin." Itachi finished his story and, like before, saw that Sasuke was listening to him, and so he continued. "So you see that the level of natural talent you were born with doesn't decide how powerful you will become. However, if you are to become as strong as I know you are capable of becoming, you will have to give it your all, and that is why I am happy that you have begun taking your training more seriously." The pep talk did its job as Sasuke was looking considerably more determined, and for the right reasons, and believed in himself more. "I will make you proud, Nissan." "I am already proud of you, Sasuke," Itachi replied with a small smile. A few moments of silence passed before Sasuke broke it. "Nissan, what is it, Sasuke?" Itachi replied, "Do you know who that boy is?" "Naruto Senju," Sasuke asked. He needed to know who the boy that won so effortlessly, so it seemed to him, was. Itachi had seen this coming already. His brother wanted to know more about his new rival. By defeating him, Naruto had proven that he was better, at least for now, and the Uchiha and Sasuke would not allow that defeat to stand. He had to draw a level and surpass Naruto, or he would not rest. This posed further concern to Itachi. He had heard about what Naruto had done and the level of destruction he had caused, and he was already convinced that he was a special shinobi. He had even begun drawing comparisons with himself. He had also mastered the Uchiha clan coming-of-age jutsu at about the same age, maybe slightly older, and this left him contemplating what a rivalry with someone who could do that would do to his brother. On one hand, a rivalry with someone who was stronger could and should help Sasuke become better, like it did for him with Shursui. On the other hand, it could lead to Sasuke becoming obsessed with power such that he would then lose himself to it. He could only hope that it led to the former scenario. Well, his name is Naruto Senju, as you know, and he is the only son of Tsunade Senju of the Sannin. Itachi replied, "Wow, he is the son of one of the Sannin. No wonder he is so strong." Sasuke said, Now Sasuke, whose child one is, does not decide their strength." Itachi said in a light scolding tone, "I guess you were right, Nin-san." Sasuke said, "But who is his father then?" He then asked. "The status of his father remains unknown for now, Sasuke," Itachi replied, and then decided to end the conversation. "Why don't we go in, Sasuke? You should be hungry now." And with that, all curiosity over Naruto's parentage that Sasuke had was forgotten in favor of sating the hunger that had so mysteriously taken a hold of him. "All right, Nin-san, let's go." As they walked back to their home, Itachi gave some thought to the topic that his brother had brought up innocently. Who was Naruto's father? Itachi had already given considerable thought to it since he heard about Naruto the day before. Somebody of Tsunade's level, and with the amount of class and pride she possessed, given her status, there was only a handful of people that could get close enough to her as was required to father her child. In fact, there was only one plausible option, Jiraiya. But it couldn't be him, Itachi concluded. He would have no reason to hide it if he were the father. Tsunade had just as much enemies as Jiraiya did, so the excuse of protecting him from his parents' enemies was invalid. Perhaps young Naruto is not even Tsunade-sama's son. Itachi mused. But who could it be then? They would have to be close enough to her for her to decide to take care of their son rather than place him in the orphanage. He was unable to continue with his thoughts, however, as Sasuke began pestering him for training. "Hey, Nin-san, will you train me?" Sasuke asked. "You already have a sensei, Sasuke-kun. Why do you need another one?" Itachi asked. But you are so much better than my sensei is. Plus, I feel like you can teach me much more than he can." Sasuke whined. With a come-hither motion, Sasuke drew nearer to Itachi and got a poke on his forehead. "I'm sorry, Sasuke. I won't be able to help you much. I am already swamped with my AMBU missions. However, I know you will advance well even without my direct assistance. So why don't you just continue under your sensei and learn everything you can?" Itachi admonished, with a small smile on his face at the end, while Sasuke massaged his forehead with a pout on his face. "No fair, Nin-san. You always say the same things whenever I ask you." Sasuke persisted. "Okay, Sasuke, let's come to a compromise. If you drop this issue, I will let you watch me train when you have time." "Deal?" Itachi asked. After thinking about it for some seconds, a smile came upon Sasuke's face as he agreed with the compromise. "All right, Nin-san, we have a deal." "Good. Now let us hurry home," Itachi said, ending the conversation. With Naruto, a day had passed since Naruto's encounter with Kiba and Sasuke. He had informed his mother and Jiraiya of his victory at the youth ninja competition, and while they were proud of him, they already expected that outcome, so it wasn't much of a surprise. In addition to this, Jiraiya decided to share a piece of very important information with both Tsunade and Naruto. Flashback. After his conversation with Kakashi, Naruto went to the garden to speak to his mother. He had sensed her. It was a skill he had recently discovered. He could always sense people's chakra whenever they were within a certain radius. Quickly arriving at the garden behind the compound, Naruto made his way to where his mother was reading a book. "Good evening, Kaa-chan." Naruto greeted his mother cheerfully. "How are you, Masuko? When did you get back?" Tsunade asked with a smile on her face. She always loved seeing her little boy. "I got back some minutes ago, Kaa-chan," Naruto replied. "Come, sit with me," Masuko Tsunade requested, and Naruto complied. "And how did it go?" Tsunade asked. "It went well, Kaa-chan. I was even able to make a friend," Naruto replied as he took a sip out of her drink. Sharing things was something they both did often. "Really? What's his name then? Tsunade asked. Seeing an opportunity to have some fun with his mother, and with the straightest face he could muster, Naruto replied, What makes you think it was a guy, Kaa-chan? It's not a boy? Tsunade asked, already fearing for the worst, for her at least. No, Kaa-chan, it was a girl, and what a girl she was, if you know what I mean. Naruto said, giggling perversely at the end, just like he had heard Kakashi and Jiraiya do severally. Hearing the words out of her baby's mouth and the perverse laugh at the end, Tsunade saw red. Jiraiya, Kakashi, I'm going to kill those two when I see them. Look what they've done to my baby boy. They've turned him into a pervert. Oh, I'm going to pulverize the both of them and then beat the pervert out of my little Naruto. Yes, I'm going to make everything right again starting now. Tsunade raged like a madwoman. Hearing Tsunade scream in rage, both Kakashi and Jiraiya hastily escaped for their lives. And maybe they soiled themselves a little at the raw killing intent that permeated the entire compound. Maybe a lot. Hearing what his mother planned to do to him, Naruto quickly decided to end the joke. Kaa-chan. Kaa-chan, please calm down. I was only joking with you. I met a guy. His name is Kiba. Kiba Inuzuka, Naruto said. His fear was real when he saw the look his mother turned to face him with. He did succeed in placating his mother, however, as she noticeably calmed down after he had spoken. So you didn't meet a girl? Tsunade asked. No, Kaa-chan. I didn't. I am not like that, Kaa-chan. I only said that to see your reaction. Don't worry, neither Ero-sennin nor Kakashi-ni-san have corrupted me yet. Naruto replied. That's much better, Masuko. However, I will still have to punish you, Tsunade said. But what are you punishing me for, Kaa-chan? Naruto said in a whiny tone. You have to learn that I am off limits for your pranks, Masuko. Don't worry though. I will think up an appropriate punishment for you later on. But carry on with your story. Tsunade said with a mischievous smile on her face. All the blood suddenly drained from Naruto's face as he suddenly looked pale, stricken with fright. Oh, okay, Kaa-chan. I did meet a guy named Kiba. He is a member of the Inuzuka clan. He was quite nice and friendly. Naruto said. Oh, Tsum's kid. That's all right, Naruto-kun. The Inuzuka are a distinguished and loyal clan of Konoha. He could be a good friend for you. Tsunade said. She knew of both children of the Inuzuka clan head, Tsum Inuzuka, Hana, and Kiba, although she hadn't met them before. That's great, Kaa-chan. I'm glad you approve. Naruto said. I also met another boy, Sasuke. Uchiha Sasuke. I didn't get the opportunity to talk to him, though. Naruto informed his mother. This was odd to Tsunade. The Uchiha were a proud and confident clan that would ordinarily not be caught in such a competition, as it would be beneath them to participate in such a competition, and they wouldn't be exactly wrong to think so. The youth ninja competition usually attracted competitors of low skill level or children who were aspiring to become shinobi. Even Uchiha children would not be allowed to participate. They would rather be trained within the clan walls. So why was the son of the clan head in such a place? She knew of Sasuke Uchiha, second son of Fugaku and Mikoto Uchiha and younger brother of Itachi Uchiha, the pride of the Uchiha clan. She was actually interested in hearing how the brother of the Uchiha prodigy did. That's interesting. Tsunade said. So how did he perform? She asked. He did quite well actually, Kaa-chan. He performed the Katon, Gokaku no Jutsu. It wasn't perfect but was still okay for a boy his age. Naruto said. He must be talented, Tsunade mused aloud. All right then. Did you win? She asked. A smile came upon Naruto's face as he heard the question. Of course I did, Kaa-chan. Naruto answered and then brought out the silver kunai he received as a prize to show to his mother. Examining it for a second, Tsunade gave it back to Naruto as she smiled. She was proud and happy for her baby. He was already doing things on his own, and she knew that he was going to do great things. All right then, why don't you go rest for a while? We will begin your training once the pervert gets back. Tsunade said. All right, Kaa-chan. See you later, Naruto replied. When Jiraiya returned to the compound, he was informed of all that had happened with Naruto that day. He also shared the same sentiments as Tsunade regarding Sasuke and his new friend Kiba. Afterwards, he decided to share the most recent development he had found out. A group of S-rank missing nin had banded together and Orochimaru was one of them. Through the aid of my spy network, I have discovered some troubling news. He began. I have been checking up on Orochimaru to know what the snake is up to and know if he has anything planned against Konoha. And what has he been up to? Tsunade asked. My sources say he has been seen moving around with a new group that popped up just recently. They aren't doing much yet except taking missions from different villages that require their services. Jiraiya replied. And what is so troubling about that? Tsunade questioned. Although Orochimaru prefers to work alone most of the time, it's not too far-fetched that he would join up with a group, especially with our Hunter Nin going after him. You didn't let me finish Haim, Jiraiya said, giving her a pointed look. What is troubling is that the group is comprised only of S-rank shinobi. Tsunade's eyes widened a fraction upon hearing the news as her mind processed all the implications of the situation at hand. A group that comprised solely of S-rank shinobi would need a leader to keep them together and in check. Also, a group that comprised solely of S-rank shinobi would also be capable of causing immeasurable damage to the balance of the elemental nations. One S-rank shinobi is capable of taking on an army of Jounins and coming out relatively unscathed, and is also exponentially stronger than an A-rank shinobi. This is serious, Jiraiya, Tsunade said. Is it really? Jiraiya asked sarcastically. Now you see why I was troubled. Ignoring his former statement in favor of finding more information to sate her worries, Tsunade pressed on. Have you informed Sensei of this yet? I did that immediately I arrived at the village, Jiraiya answered. He also showed concern and asked that I keep my ears to the ground for any more information. All the while his mother and godfather had been talking, Naruto had been listening in on their conversation. It wasn't eavesdropping, as they didn't ask him to leave this time, unlike they did when they wanted to discuss something which they didn't want him to hear. He didn't understand much of what they were saying, but the little he did understand was enough to get him worried. He had read all about the system of shinobi, its ranking and hierarchy, and he knew how powerful S-rank shinobi were. In fact, there were only 3 S-rank shinobi in the village at the moment: the Sandaime Hokage, Hiruzen Sarutobi, Tsunade Senju, Konoha's Slug Princess, and Jiraiya, the Toad Sage. Naruto couldn't even dream of taking on any of them yet, and the thought of having people potentially as strong as or even stronger than them running around set him on edge. He loved his village and wanted to be as strong as was necessary to protect it. And so he silently resolved to get strong enough to defend his village no matter the opposition. Now to the reason I allowed Naruto stay to hear this, Jiraiya began. I think we should concentrate more on Naruto's training. While we don't know the plan of this new group, we have to make preparations as if they aim to harm us. And my son is some kind of super weapon that you intend to use to combat this group? Tsunade asked, a strong glare at Jiraiya and a dangerous tone to her voice. Of course not, Tsunade, Jiraiya exclaimed, also with a glare. You know Naruto is like the son I never had. This is for his protection as well. And how is this to protect him? Tsunade asked, in a voice that said she wasn't too convinced but was willing to hear him out. Don't you want to be able to relax and know that you have prepared him enough to take on any adversaries he may face? We don't know the plans of this group yet, but we know that they have the makeup of an incredibly dangerous foe. Naruto must be prepared to lead his generation against them. It is his destiny. Jiraiya ended his speech. My son's destiny is not to die like a chicken for this village like all the other Hokages. Tsunade bristled hotly. The Hokage's sacrifices were not in vain, Tsunade. You should know that, Jiraiya said, trying to douse the growing tension while passing his point across. Be that as it may, Naruto is too young now for that kind of responsibility, Tsunade maintained, although in a more calm tone. Haim, you and I both know that Naruto is anything but normal. He is already more mature than his peers, and in a few years I believe that he will be ready for this. Can I say something? Naruto asked suddenly. Of course you can, Naruchan, Tsunade replied, ignoring his mother's pet name for him for the moment. Naruto spoke up. I don't know who this group is, what they can do, or what they are about. But I do know that if there is anything I can do to stop them should they ever become a threat to Konoha, I will do it, Naruto declared with the utmost conviction and a fire in his eyes that took both Tsunade and Jiraiya by surprise. When that time comes where I give my all in service to this village, I want to be able to give something worthwhile. So I ask that you both join me in training to my limits, because I am doing so with or without your help. Hearing what Naruto said and feeling his determination filled Tsunade and Jiraiya with a great deal of pride. He already had the spirit and will of a Hokage, the will of fire. They could tell that he would do great things not only because of his talents but even more because of his will and his heart. If this is what you really want, Masuko, then Jiraiya and I will teach you everything we know, and until we see you become the shinobi and man we know you can be, Tsunade said with a smile on her face, while Jiraiya nodded, also with a smile on his face. Flashback end. After the discussion, both Jiraiya and Tsunade stepped up Naruto's training. They decided to teach him proper elemental manipulation. While he already knew jutsu for all the primary elements, he had not actually done the nature manipulation exercises for them. But as they were all his nature affinities, he was able to perform them without much problem. Jiraiya and Tsunade both believed that if he could complete the nature manipulation exercises, not only would he be able to learn higher-ranked jutsu, but they would be more powerful and he would be able to reduce the amount of hand seals necessary. And so they got him started on Fire Chakra Transformation, which happened to be the most common in High no Kuni as well as being one of Jiraiya's natures. Naruto, I think it's time we got started on teaching you about Elemental Transformation. Jiraiya began. As you may already know, Katan is the most common nature here in High no Kuni, Fire Country, and it is also one of my primary affinities, and for these reasons it would be the best for us to start with. I understand, Ero Sennin. Let us begin. Naruto said, and it seemed his recently discovered fire hadn't waned in the slightest. Seeing his readiness to train reminded Jiraiya of a young Minato Senju, and that brought a smile to his face. Alright then, the first step in Katan transformation is channeling fire chakra through a leaf in order to burn it. Once you can do this instantly, I will consider the exercise mastered and we can move on to the next stage. Jiraiya said, wait, when you say you will consider the exercise mastered when I can do it instantly, does that mean no one else has to be able to do it instantly before they can move on to the next stage? Naruto asked. That is quite astute of you, Naruto. Most other people do it in 5 seconds, but I know you can do it instantly. Jiraiya said with a smile on his face. So let us begin. And so with that they began Naruto's training. It didn't take long for Naruto to master the first stage of Katan manipulation, after which he then advanced to the final level, which involved superheating a moderately large pool of water to boiling point. It took a bit longer than the first stage to complete, but he eventually did. After completing the manipulation exercise for Katan Chakra, Jiraiya decided to train Naruto's Doton Chakra as it was his other primary element. Naruto, now that you have mastered Katan Chakra, we will move on to training your Doton Chakra. The first stage of the exercise involves converting a small rock to earth and back. Once you can do that instantly, I'll consider the first stage mastered and then we can move on to the next stage. Alright, Ero Sennin. I'll get to it right away. Naruto, replied Jiraiya. And so he did, with the same determination he had when mastering his Katan Chakra. His Rinne-Sharingan allowed him an extremely powerful affinity with all elements. However, he still had to be able to separate each individual chakra nature in order to use it. Therein lay the challenge for him. Are you having some difficulty, Naruto? Jiraiya asked, seeing as Naruto had been concentrating on the rock in his hand for close to an hour with no visible headway and was already showing signs of frustration. Yes, Ero Sennin. I'm having difficulty separating the Doton nature from my chakra in order to progress with this exercise. With a smile at Naruto also experiencing the struggle that everyone else who attempted to master more than one chakra nature, Jiraiya decided to give him the same advice that was given him by his sensei. Figure it out then. Gee, thanks for the help, Ero Sennin. Naruto said sarcastically. Chuckling at his godson's displeasure, Jiraiya decided to explain, the process of separating one's own chakra into different natures is something that cannot be explained, Naruto. As everyone's chakra network is different, you must discover the technique towards accomplishing what you want yourself. Hearing his godfather's explanation, Naruto couldn't help but agree with the logic. If he wanted to master all chakra natures, he would need to understand his own chakra rather than merely having a general understanding of chakra. Don't sweat it, son, Jiraiya stated. You will get it soon. Just give it time. I think I have an idea of what to do, Ero Sennin. Naruto said while standing up from his seated position. Where are you going, Naruto? Jiraiya asked. I'll be in my room for the rest of the day, Ero Sennin. Please let Ka-san and Shizune-chan not to bother me. I won't be eating either, Naruto replied. Completely stumped as to what his godson was going to be doing in his room for the rest of the day without eating, Jiraiya decided to ask for an explanation. What are you going to be doing in your room for the rest of the day, Naruto? You know your mother is more likely to go to your room if I tell her what you've asked that I tell her. I want to test a theory. Just tell her that I am working on something very important and have asked not to be disturbed. Well, if that's what you want, then I will oblige you. However, you better have an explanation tomorrow as we will all be expecting one. I will. Thank you, Ero Sennin. Naruto said as he made his way inside the house to his room. Once in his room, Naruto got in the meditation position. His plan was to be able to understand his chakra network and its nature better by meditating. He had read in a book that meditation helped shinobi understand the way their chakra worked, and he believed it would help him in solving the problem he had. And so Naruto began meditating, and as he progressed, he was growing in his understanding of his chakra and the way it worked. He didn't know how long he had spent meditating and didn't even consider the time factor at all. He was determined to only leave his position when he was satisfied with his understanding, no matter how long that took. Being a Jinchuriki, Naruto immediately appeared in his mindscape when he began meditating. He was, however, careful to avoid the Kyuubi's cage as it was not his mission to talk to the Kyuubi this time except he had to in order to fulfill his current mission. When he arrived at his mindscape, the first thing he discovered, unlike the last time he was here, when he first activated his dojutsu, was that it resembled a large hallway featuring red carpeting with gold thread designs. Sparkling white walls and gold and marble statues of people and creatures that Naruto had no idea about. Why does this place look better than the last time? Way better, Naruto thought. It indeed looked majestic. However, Naruto was too determined to accomplish his mission to be distracted by the beauty of his mindscape or by his curiosity over the identities of the various statues. As he went on through the hallway, he came to a large field featuring beautiful flowers, massive trees, magnificent in their grandeur and almost intimidating, and a brightly shining sun that could have fooled him into believing that he was back in the real world. Straight ahead, he saw two large caves made of marble of the most dazzling white color. He knew that one of them must be where the Kyuubi would be, while the other would be the storehouse of all his knowledge, memories, experiences, and the place he would need to go to understand his chakra better. By the waves of dark and malicious chakra emanating from the cave to the left, Naruto knew that was the Kyuubi's, and so he made his way to the cave on the right. As he entered, he noted that it featured similar furnishing to the hallway he had come through earlier. He discovered several grand doors with ornate gold designs as he toured the place, each having conveniently placed name plates on them describing what they were for. Reaching the end of the hallway and feeling a bit dejected at not having found what he came for yet, Naruto finally found what resembled a ball of energy shielded by what seemed to be a several inches thick glass. Curious as to what it could be, and a bit excited over the prospect of that ball of energy being what the key to pathway to the information he was seeking, Naruto made over to grasp it. As he made to touch the glass, he was surprised to find that his hand passed through the glass like it wasn't even there. However, he wasn't deterred in the least by this oddity. Instead, he reached for the orb of energy, and as he grasped it, he was transported deeper into his mindscape to the world of his chakra. He had been in the world of his chakra for what seemed like forever and was experiencing things that couldn't be explained with words. It was truly transcendent, the feeling and the knowledge he had received. He now knew why no one could be taught to separate chakra natures. It required more than any extrinsic knowledge, no matter how concise, to achieve such a thing. One had to intrinsically know and be acquainted with their chakra. It was a bond that couldn't be aptly expressed in words. However, by constant practice, many people could eventually reach that level of acquaintance with their chakra to separate it into other natures. However, unknown to even Naruto was the fact that what he had accomplished was an understanding of chakra that had been lost to shinobi for millennia. It was the desire of the Sage of Six Paths, the Rikudo Sennin, Hagoromo Otsutsuki, that people use the chakra he had given them to understand themselves and others better, but people instead weaponized chakra and turned ninshu into ninjutsu. Naruto, by this, was the first person since the earlier adherents to the ninshu creed to reconnect with chakra in this way. Snapping his eyes open, Naruto immediately recognized the sweet sensation of his chakra flowing around his chakra network. He also discovered that it was day outside as the sun was out. Looking at his clock on his bedside table, he discovered that he had been meditating for 24 hours straight. It was amazing to him as he hadn't felt as if he had been there for any more than an hour. Deciding it was best, he went to his family to ease their worries. He went downstairs to living room where he felt his mother's chakra along with Shizen, Jiraiya, and surprisingly Kakashi. He must have arrived while I was still in my mindscape and stayed, Naruto thought. Probably did it to keep Mum and Shizen-chan company. They're most likely very worried by now. I better get there now. When he arrived at the living room, he found everyone he had sensed earlier seated. However, the worry his mother and sister were feeling was clear to him. Hello, all eyes snapped up to him as soon as he spoke, making him rub the back of his head while chuckling nervously. What was clear to him was that he was in for a very scary questioning session. He only hoped it didn't take another 24 hours.